Okay, give me just 1 second. I'm getting everything set up here. Okay, just 1 second. Oh, okay. Go. Just give me 1 second. All right, so we'll get started. Sorry, my camera's a little off this morning. Here we go. So, sorry, just give me 1 second. All right. 1 second. Sorry about this. Got it. Okay, so today's webinar is actually a pretty important topic. It's actually a pretty good. It's not. This is not like the longest webinar because we're getting ready for like a long weekend. But I think this is a good webinar to kind of it covers a lot of extremely important information regarding kind of how people treat their jobs when they get into them, and what is really necessary for success and what tends to hold a lot of people back. And this particular topic is one that I teach as part of a course, and it's something that I've never presented on before, and I think will be very helpful to learn, regardless of whether you're a law student or you're just starting out, or really however long you've been practicing. It covers a lot of mistakes that people tend to make when they get into law firms, whether or not they're starting their summers as a summer associate, or even when they're 5 or 6 years in and they don't understand why they're not having success. So what you're going to learn today is one of the most powerful things that I teach, and something that I think will help you quite a bit as you kind of go on your journey working in law firms. And the advice I'm providing today can help you sort of almost regardless of what the stage of your career, I mean, not only what the stage of your career is, but whatever practice setting you find yourself in. So if you wind up in a law firm, it can help you there. If you wind up in-house, it can help you there. If you wind up in the government, it can help you there. And what I'm talking about today is really based on my experience of working with people for 25 years and seeing the people that tend to succeed the most when they get into when they get into any practice setting, the people that tend to be a partner. And it really doesn't matter, where you went to law school or anything that you've done in the past. What you're going to learn today is very powerful stuff that I think will ultimately make you successful in whatever you do, and even down to starting your own business or something like that if you want to do that, even outside of the practice of law. So this is a really good presentation. I coach people quite often, and I have lots of partners that I coach, and they pay me like $5,000 a month to meet with them twice and two 90-minute sessions, and then I'm available by email and so forth and text. But this is one of the things that we tend to go over a lot. It helps people that are trying to become partner advance. It helps partners that are trying to advance. And it also is very, very important for people if they ever get to the stage, which most partners are at, where they're trying to generate business and do well in whatever law firm they're in. So this is like honestly one of the most important lessons you can learn. So I'm excited about this today, and I'll kind of get started right now. So a lot of people that are in the practice of law do not succeed. So people that go into law firms will often consistently experience problems. They will not know why they're not succeeding. They will have, all sorts of different issues, whether it's getting their work criticized or seeing other people advance around them that they believe are not as smart. And it's just there's a lot of misunderstanding about what really makes people successful. So whether or not you're a solo practitioner or a large firm attorney, this is almost always why people don't succeed. What I'm going to talk about today, and why the people that do succeed, this is about what they do. So the reason this is actually so important is because it's missed by almost every attorney throughout their career. So if you take 100 people that are graduating from law school, probably only 20 to 30% ever get this lesson. It's missed by many, and even people that do understand this lesson almost always will not do everything that they could with this lesson and be not as successful as they could be. So, you can learn right now what people are doing, and I'm going to teach you that. And you can also, there's just examples of this everywhere you turn. So you will see, as I talk about this, why people around you haven't succeeded. And it really, one of the lessons here that's very easy to see is why businesses fail and succeed as well. Because as an attorney, you are a business. And so people don't realize that, but you're actually a business. When lawyers used to get out of law school and pass the bar, passing the bar is basically a license to do business and getting a business license. And it always used to be looked at that way prior to large law firms and stuff emerging, which didn't even really happen until the 1950s. Before then, the majority of attorneys were solo practitioners and running their own business. So when they got out of school, that's what they did. And now it's different, but your law degree still is a way to run a business, whether or not you're working for others in that business and selling your time to them, like you're in a law firm, or if you have your own practice. So my office where I work is in a upscale shopping mall in the center of Malibu. There's not a lot of offices there. I happen to be in a sort of a retail type space, but it's not in the most traffic part. Malibu is a relatively small area. There's really no more than probably 10,000 people there that live there full time. It's probably even less than that because it's like a high income type area. The rent in the where I work is expensive, and in the mall that I work in, it's not. I wouldn't call it a mall. I mean, it's kind of a collection of maybe 20 stores. The stores that open there, they need to know exactly what they need to do in order to get customers and to stay in business. And there's different types of traffic there. So there's traffic that's in the summer when the majority of people are there, and people come there on the weekends. But in general, it's about an hour from most areas of Los Angeles, and so with traffic in the summer. So the majority of people that are there throughout the year are mainly local. So the mall relies on during the week, and when it's winter and stuff, and there's not a lot of people, it relies mainly on local traffic. And most of the stores there here are overpriced. I mean, they're selling very expensive clothing that's from France and New York, or just kind of these designer brands and things. There's a few very expensive restaurants. There's a lot of real estate agencies, like 2 or 3, that sell very expensive homes. There's some art galleries, and then there's like a natural food type place that sells natural juices for $12-15 a bottle, and they mix them and that sort of thing. So unless these stores have a lot of markup, meaning they have to be able to pay for the rent and make a lot of money, they can't survive. And so what happens is all around this mall, like almost every month, even though there's only 20 plus businesses there, businesses are failing and there's vacant space, and then things open and then they rent it again. And so what these stores need to do is they need to be able to attract full-time residents or visitors who will spend a lot of money in the weekends during the summers and make a lot of money. And it's just kind of how it works. So they have to be very, very good at what they do. And then they also have to have things that are getting people interested in buying them. So right beneath my office, there's a French motorcycle company that opened, staffed by a man from France. And it's in very expensive space. And every day I walk by there when I'm going to lunch and so forth, and when I'm leaving, and there's never anybody in the store. It's this store with very expensive things. Most people in Malibu do not drive around on motorcycles, and this is one of the strangest stores that I've ever seen open there, because it's almost inconceivable that there's a need for something like this. It's opened in a small town of 10,000 people, 1 hour outside of a major city, and people certainly aren't driving to Malibu to buy motorcycles. And it has no street visibility. There's no place to take these motorcycles out and test them. He only has like 3 of them on the entire floor. And I walked in there one day, and there was someone working behind the counter, just kind of playing with their phone. And I asked them why they even opened this thing. And the guy behind the desk said, "Well, my boss likes Malibu and wanted to have a shop here," and that's what he told me. So this guy that was the clerk had been brought over from France, meaning they hired someone from France to work in the motorcycle store to talk to people about these motorcycles. And the store is very nicely built out. It's probably cost them, at least 100,000, maybe several times that, to open and build it out. And as far as I can tell, in the several months they've been there, I've certainly never seen anybody buy a motorcycle. I doubt anybody has ever bought a motorcycle there. So it's run by someone with a lot of money that opened it as kind of a vanity project, and it's not like a major national brand, or it's not like if you opened a Hermes or a Louis Vuitton there that people would recognize the brand and buy things there. It's just this guy with a motorcycle shop, and I have no idea how long he will keep this open. And before I tell you the huge mistake this man made, and this sort of, and it relates to mistakes that you may have made in your career, I need to tell you that this person is not the first person to try to open something like this, and by no stretch of the imagination will be the last. I've seen people open candle shops just selling nothing but candles. I've seen people open stores selling high-end chocolate that they just kind of buy from someone else and call high-end chocolate. I've seen people open meditation studios and all sorts of other businesses that were obviously, destined to fail, and did fail. And they failed for the same reason that most attorneys fail. But before I explain the thought process behind these failures, I would like to tell you another story. Some of these stores, too, it's kind of funny, are opened by the wives of men who are very wealthy, that their wives want something to do. So it's sort of the same thing. They open something around some idea that they have, and it almost always fails. I saw one woman open a store that sold fabric wall coverings. So if people wanted to put fabric on their walls instead of wallpaper, they could do that, and that failed. And it was just super high-end fabrics. She must have liked doing that in her house and started trying to sell it to other people. So one of the most interesting things that I notice, and I'm sure you notice about holidays, like Christmas and birthdays and other sorts of events, is they tend to bring out either the best or the worst in people. So when you see people buying other people gifts, a lot of people will just go over the top. They will do a lot for others to show how much they care about them. They will buy them gifts that the person will like. They may spend a lot of money, and they will really try to make people happy with nice gifts. And people who tend to make a big effort at this and go out of their way to do it, sometimes they'll even and quite frequently buy gifts for people that are just kind of not very close to them, but they'll still buy them nice gifts. These sort of people are typically liked. They're liked by a lot of people. People like them. Give me 1 second. Someone just raised their hand. I want to make sure that it's nothing serious. Okay, so they will do things for people that are like them. They will include them, and they will feel empowered to, by the care and affection they receive in return. So people that do this sort of stuff tend to be quite liked, and people will, be very nice to them in return. It's not often the case, but most often it is. And so there are people out there that are natural givers who truly enjoy doing nice things for others. And these sorts of people tend to be very liked by other people. They're just natural givers. And on the other hand, there's a lot of people that aren't givers. Like they may feel entitled to receive gifts and attention on their birthdays, despite the same that they don't do the same for others. Or when they do give gifts, they are calculating and only give the level of gift they think other people will give them, and they often will expect to be get a lot of gifts from others, despite not doing the same for others. And so this sort of person is often, not always, as common as the natural giver. And these personalities often do not have a lot of friends. People do not care about them as much as the givers, and there's certainly exceptions, but it's most often true. So I often see, like on holidays and birthdays, I see people that are of this entitled category. So for other, one person I'm thinking of in particular, for other people's birthdays, he does things like purchase books he wants, then reads them himself, and then will give them to others as gifts. And they will be books typically that people would not be interested in. He also will forget birthdays. However, like when it's his birthday, he always makes plans to visit his relatives, with the exception that simply by showing up, he's going to be treated to a nice dinner, gifts, cake, and a celebration. And when he's invited to someone else's birthday event, he will always take more than he gives. Like he's going for the food and ensuring that he's the center of attention by talking about himself and not give very nice gifts. On holidays like Christmas, they'll go to a dollar store and purchase all sorts of gifts that people could not possibly want, but have looked like they were priced at a high price originally. So a 40-year-old woman, like with no interest in math, might be given an old book about math equations that originally cost $30, but is like now $1. So he'll look like he's being very generous. The $1 price tag will be peeled off, and the original price will be left visible. And so, same thing, a child might be given a $1 jar of Play-Doh that originally cost $5 and is now hardened and worthless. And at the same time, the child may, money from their parents, give him a shaving kit that costs $20, even though she's only 7 years old. So to highlight this type of selfishness, just to be kind of funny, and this is an example of someone that's very selfish. One year I bought him, along with lots of gifts, a fake lottery ticket where everyone was a winner. And I put the envelope in a card and told them that if I won, I expect them to split half the earnings with me. And you can buy these fake lottery tickets on Amazon. It's kind of funny. So everyone is a winner. And when he scratched off the numbers, sure enough, it showed that he'd won $100,000 because every single card was a winner. And when I asked him if he won anything, he told me that the ticket was not a winner, and then very quickly squirreled it and took it away. So the last thing in the world he was going to do, even though the gift was given with these conditions, was share his winnings. So it's not the idea necessarily of giving gifts and things that I think is important. It's putting like a little bit of thought and effort into those gifts. And if you do that, people tend to like that a lot because this man could afford to give a lot more, but his sense is that others should do more for him without him ever having to contribute in return. And that's the problem. So there's way too many people who expect a lot to be done for them, but they don't contribute to others. And there's also a lot of people that give and contribute based on their own needs, but not the needs of others. So if you think back to people that you've worked with and people that you know, I'm sure that you can see this pattern of people that really are not giving in a very nice way. And when you make contributions based on your own needs and not what others need, then that's typically will breed people not being as happy with you. It will also tend to breed a lack of success in everything that you do and other problems in your professional and business life. And so this particular man that I'm thinking about, and I have several examples of people like this, will often give such bad gifts that he's never had he never had much of a career because he's always more concerned with taking and giving. So the same thing that he applies to his family and people that he knows, he also applied to his professional career and did not have a good career, even though by all measures is very smart and went to the right schools, Ivy League schools and stuff, and probably could have been very smart, had a different attitude. And this also carries over into relationships and friendships, because if a friendship or relationship is characterized more by taking and not giving people what they want, manipulation, and getting as much as possible as you can for as little as possible, then you're obviously not going to be successful in relationships because people will resent it. People will see that you're a quid pro quo, whether it's how much affection you give or gifts you give or going out of your way for people. And that causes problems in relationships. And so this particular person's attitude towards life, his career and relationships is that people exist to serve him. And when he doesn't contribute, when he does contribute, he does so based on his own rules and what he wants or what he perceives as the least amount he needs to do, and not what others want and need. And this is a very common personality type that's very common in professionals that don't succeed. And it's something that is one of the most powerful lessons when you understand you can apply to your career. So the French man who wanted a motorcycle shop in the center of Malibu did this only for his own vanity, not because he was trying to give people in that mall what they wanted. And he just had absolutely no regard for what other people wanted. His only interest was his vanity and setting up the shop in an expensive place that he liked. And he didn't really give the market anything, so the market didn't respond. The man who does not give gifts but expects so much in return is also only capable of serving his own interest and never giving more than he receives. So there's a very famous thing that I remember Tony Robbins once said, and it was at a seminar, and he just kept repeating it, and it's one of the most powerful lessons that there is, and it's that like life supports life. So if you give somebody something in return, whether it's professionally or in relationships, they're going to support you in return. So you will grow and you will succeed to this extent, in most cases, that you're supporting other people's interest, and in return, they will give you a lot in return. It always works that way. It works for associates in law firms that bill the most hours. It works for partners that are trying to keep and win clients. It works for pretty much everybody that is in anything, whether it's a store or it's anything. I mean, if you think about like stores like Walmart they opened an area, originally they became incredibly successful by opening stores in areas of the country that were underserved and then giving people the absolute lowest prices possible and things that they wanted. And that caused the store to just take off and eliminate stores like Sears that weren't doing that. Sears used to be one of the largest, when I was growing up, the largest type of store of its kind. And all the Sears now are out of business. So it's always that way. Stores grow because of that. People grow because of that. Politicians grow because of that, because they're giving people, whether it's tax cuts or uh, regardless of what it is, exporting, getting rid of immigrants, so there's more jobs. I mean, it's just or less money the government spending, whatever that is. When people give people what they want and support them, everybody is advanced. So it's a secret of politicians. It's a secret of businesses, like something like Amazon that makes shopping much more convenient for people and gives them more of a selection and lowest prices. Every business, every person that succeeds as someone that's supporting others and giving other people life and helping them. So the example would be, someone that's billing a lot of hours in a law firm is making the law firm richer. And so because of that, the law firm is going to want to keep them around. Someone that's doing good work in a law firm that's making partners look good with their quality of work is likely to be kept around. Someone that's doing good work and keeping the bills down for law firm clients and giving them what they want and getting them good results is likely to get more business from the same person. So you need to understand, what you're willing to do, because if you learn this lesson, and I'll talk about it in a lot more detail right now, but if you learn this lesson, your whole life career are going to change. It will change professionally. It will also change personally. So when social media first came out, which I was around for, that old, unfortunately, I didn't understand exactly what was going on. It just was all completely foreign to me. I didn't understand why things like Facebook were growing. Before that, there was MySpace, and before that, there was Friendster. I just had no understanding of what these businesses and social media sites were about. Because for me at the time, it just seemed like people were kind of posting all the great things about themselves that served their own vanity. They were posting their stories of interest and, like they just went to the grocery store, and it didn't seem to make a lot of sense for me. I just didn't understand what it was about. But in reality, one of the reasons that social media has grown so fast or grew so fast, and people like Mark Zuckerberg just became multi-billionaires, and the same thing goes with sites like Twitter and everything, is that it's about a lot more than that. It's about making others feel validated. So people that may not feel validated or connected to other people are suddenly part of these small communities of their friends, or getting input about how great they are from the market, from others in general that are following them and so forth. And so they're contributing a lot, and not just to one person and themselves, but to others. And then other people will give, thumbs up or hearts and things to other people. People say, they'll make comments. And when they do, people feel good about themselves. I remember one woman that I was talking to, and she was talking about her social media or something, and was upset that other people that she was giving thumbs up to weren't doing the same for her. So she stopped liking them socially and felt left out. And so if you make others feel good about the things they say, then they will do the same thing for you. And so you suddenly have this kind of very supportive community that you might not have had before social media, and you're suddenly connected to all these people that you may not have known, that you may not have been in contact with in years, your friends, other people. And so people are very cognizant now, I know my kids are, of everything that's happening in response to Instagram posts and all this sort of thing. So when you give other people what they want, like attention and validation, they're likely to do the same to you. And so all of a sudden, You feel good about yourself because of social media, and other people feel closer to you, and you're actually able to strengthen friendships and relationships with your family and friends and other people that you normally wouldn't be able to do without social media. So it's a very powerful way to connect. It's a very powerful way to feel part of a group. It's a very powerful way to feel validated. It's a very powerful way to validate other people. And that's really what makes it so successful, is it provides connections with people and validation in groups that wouldn't exist without it. So the careers of attorneys, and this is what I study, and I've been studying for the past 25 years, is their success is just directly in proportion. Excuse me. Give me one thing here. Maybe not. To how willing they are to contribute to others in a very selfless fashion. So what are they doing to help others? And so they do this often as associates. They may help other associates and give to them, or as even senior associates, and maybe helping junior associates. And not only that, of course, they're helping partners and things that they work for. And what they're doing is they're anticipating and doing what other people want and need, not just clients, but everyone that they're working for in their firms, their peers, and then people that are close to them and others that are around them. So if someone is continually selfish and only doing what they want and is best for them, they start experiencing all these problems in their personal, professional, and financial lives in the future. This is a kind of an interesting story and an important lesson that you should learn, because I certainly have failed. I failed early in my career. I managed to get a job as a summer associate through a friend, because his mother had gone to law school with, gone to college with the hiring partner of a law firm, and they had dated him and good friends and all that, and stayed in touch. But and so I worked there, but I didn't get an offer because I was doing a lot of things wrong. And then also when I was very excuse me, early in my career and interviewing for jobs as a summer associate and that sort of thing, I didn't really get any callback interviews because there was a lot that I was doing wrong. I was going into the interviews talking about myself. I was not finding out what other people needed and asking questions about that. And I was structuring my resume in a way that served me personally, and but not necessarily others. And so what does that mean? So what that means, and it's a couple of very important points, and I hope you will take notes right now, because this is some of the most powerful things you can learn about your job search. One of the things is when you write a resume, you have to gear it towards what someone else needs, meaning people that are hiring you are interested in someone that does whatever type of practice area you're applying for the job. That's what they care about. They don't care about the fact that you may have done work in 5 different practice areas. They only care about your experience in one practice area, because when someone is advertising a job, they're advertising for someone to do, they may want probate litigation. And so putting on your resume that you did corporate work and all these other things are not going to help you. If they're advertising for someone to do, just corporate law, they're not interested in the fact that you may have done litigation. They only need someone that does corporate law. So if you have a resume where you're just talking about things that you think are great, that you did all these different practice areas, they're not going to be interested in that. So this is one of the biggest mistakes that people make on their resumes, and it prevents probably upwards of 85% of people from getting interviews that they normally wouldn't if they focused their resume just on one practice area. So this is one very powerful piece of advice that I hope you will think about. They do not care about the fact that whatever long descriptions of jobs you may have had prior to law school that have nothing to do with that practice area. All they really care about is your focus on that practice area. If you're a senior, attorney with one or more years of experience applying for jobs, or if you look like someone that's going to be very focused when you do get into a firm, if you're a law student, and do what the firm wants. Another big mistake that almost all resumes make, not all, but most, is they will list all these things about themselves that are kind of self-serving in their identity. So they will list all these organizations. They could be listing that they're part of some religious-oriented organization. They may be listing that they're part of some social justice organization or some political party, whether Democrats or Republicans, or all these different things that are self-serving for their identity, but may not serve the firm when they get there. They may also list all this pro bono stuff that may not serve the firm. So they put all these things on their resumes that are about them, but not what the firm wants. Any firm that's interviewing an associate only wants someone that's going to sit down and work. They're not going to want someone with all these other interests, because those interests don't necessarily serve the firm. Now, if you're on law review or a journal or something, then that's good. But other than things that are similar to that, listing a lot of organizations that could actually be polarizing to different types of firms may serve you, but they don't serve others. So making your resume focused on one practice area, like you want to do one thing and that you have experience in one thing, and then not listing things that may be self-serving, but not really help the firm, is a big mistake. So my early resumes would talk about in great detail, like an asphalt business that I ran that I was very proud of, or they would talk about papers that I was very proud of that I may have written in college and law school that had nothing to do with a firm that was seeking a corporate associate or a litigation associate, and that turned people off. Then going into interviews and talking about things that are self-serving, whether they're your political party, or just talking about things that really don't communicate your enthusiasm for a practice area doing work, are always going to prevent you from getting callbacks. Your job in any interview is to go in and ask the firm and try to anticipate what their needs are, and when you do that, making sure that when you do talk about what their needs are, that's going to really set you apart, because very few people go in to interviews to just figure out and talk about what the firm needs. So talking about what the firm needs would be like saying things like, what would it take me to be successful over the next my first 30 days in the job, or 60 days? What would make me be like a very standout associate? How would I do that? Like what type of things would I need to do to be really, really good at my job? And very few people do that. They go in and they just talk about things that have nothing to do with being good at their job. And when they do that, they don't get callbacks. And if they do get callbacks, they don't get the job. And the statistics are that, and you may be batting at this level, if you're not interviewing for like a very poor paying job that no one really wants, and the firm is just trying to get bodies, or if you're interviewing if you're not interviewing in a part of a country where there's just hardly any attorneys, your odds of getting a position, if you're trying to apply for jobs that are even semi-competitive, will go up from the typical success rate of interviews leading to jobs is about probably about 1 in 8, but in some cases, depending on the market, it's like 1 in 10. So people will go into interviews and just say all the wrong things and not get jobs. People that do say the right things and talk about what other people need, and figure out what they need and talk to their needs, will get jobs. It's what happens. So instead of like 1 out of 10 jobs, I've seen people that have told me any interview that I get into, I will get the job. And they're absolutely right. And this is all they do, is they talk in terms of what other people need. They ask them about what they need. They're familiar with what they do, and that turns their interviews into job offers, into very high. If you can get from 1 out of 8 to 5, to 4 out of 8, you've made a lot of progress, or 5 out of 8, or 6 out of 8. And the people that do get the jobs, regardless of their qualifications, are the people that are able to do that. Resumes, typically, you may need to apply to, some people will apply to 50 places and not get a job or even an interview. And they'll think, oh, it's about my law school, or it's about something else. And it's usually about your resume, just talking in terms of your self-interest and not other people's. So this particular piece of advice that I'm giving you can drastically increase your job odds of getting a position, both on your resume and then on your interviewing. And to follow up on that, being able to work in terms of what other people need, not what's important to you, and going out of your way to find out what other people need, will almost always result in you doing much, much better at your job. Partners that don't get business often will go in and they will pitch people on getting business. And instead of really figuring out what people need and listening to them and talking in terms of what the person needs, and not kind of lecturing them on what they need and like that's everything, they know everything, they will not convert interviews into jobs. And so that pitches into work. And so that can really, really hurt people. And it's something that people do that don't get business. It's something that people do that don't get jobs. It's something that people do on their resume that doesn't get them interviews as well. So you really need to figure this out and follow the advice I'm saying, because I'm just telling you, I can look at 100 resumes and maybe 15 of them will do this correctly. Sometimes maybe only 10. And I know when someone has a very focused resume, regardless of their qualifications, they could be doing practice areas that are not considered prestigious, like maybe workers' compensation and things. But if they're very focused on their practice area, regardless of what they do, they will get interviews. And then if they do that, when they go into job interviews, they will get jobs. And most people, though, do the opposite. Their resume is just focused on things that are important to them and not necessarily what's important to an employer. So just think about it from an employer's point of view. If you were to interview someone to be like a nanny in your house, give me 1 second here. Sorry. Okay, I'll answer the questions at the end of the webinar, but I will answer, people are asking questions, I'll answer everyone's question at the end of the webinar. But if you are doing things that are, if you were interviewing a nanny and the nanny had all of these jobs listed on their resume that had nothing to do with being a nanny, and then they listed their last job and talked about all these things that had something to do with being a nanny, but not as much, you would want the person who had the history and talked only about being a nanny, and then went into your interview and just asked you what you needed, and then talked in terms of your needs instead of their needs. Some people will go into interviews. I've had situations where I've interviewed people just to do things around my house, and all they come in is talk about what they want and not necessarily what they can give. And so that's a real problem. And so this is something that most law students and attorneys are doing to some extent, and it's not helping you, and it's preventing you from getting jobs both on your resume and your interview, and it's also preventing you from succeeding once you get into employers. And these are like this is like one of the most important lessons you can learn, and I'll talk about it in a little bit more detail right now, but it's very, very important to understand. So my first position when I was in law school, I worked for a federal district judge when I got out of law school for 1 year. And when I started there, the person that was leaving the job that I was replacing, I was a 2-year clerkship. I realized that when I started working for him, that this other clerk was leaving getting into work each morning and going to get his mail, because there was the courthouse was in a post office building, because it was a small courthouse. And I noticed that that clerk was leaving to get his mail each morning and put it on his desk. And this was something that was not part of her job description, something that other clerks weren't doing, but it made him feel important and appreciated. And it saved him a trip to the mailbox and additional time out of his day, which probably was, around 5 minutes, but it was a sign of respect. And it wasn't something that I wanted to do, but I thought it was an important part of my job. So I made a point to do it each morning. But one of the things that happened to me in my clerkship was I actually got fired. And I was taken into a room where I knew in his office, and I knew I was in the process of getting fired, so I quit. But I got fired, and what the things that I did wrong is I wasn't supportive of his political opinions. I didn't support him. He wanted all of his decisions to come out in a very Republican company-facing point of view. And at the time of my life, I didn't realize that it was important to actually support him and give him what he wanted. And so because I was giving him all these opinions that he needed to have me rewrite, because there were other people in the courthouse, like court reporters and things, that didn't disagree with his position. So I was on their side. I was argumentative with him sometimes about his positions, and he just did not like that. And because he didn't like that, what he started doing was, instead of saying that I was wrong for having my point of view, he started aggressively critiquing my work and making that, putting that on me and making it seem like I was a bad attorney, which I certainly was making errors and learned a lot from this. But my co-clerk certainly didn't get the same type of feedback. He would sit down with her and very nicely point out his errors. So I did that, and I ended up getting fired from a job that was supposed to be 2 years, and it caused me all sorts of problems because I got fired like 1 year in, and because I got fired and it was a 2 year clerkship, I had to take the bar, so I was barless, living in this small town, and I went through kind of a whole period of self-reflection where I realized sort of all the errors I'd made in my resume. I realized all the errors I made in my interviews. I realized the errors I made with him, and I kind of turned that around to have a very successful career, at least when I started, and before I quit to do this. But that was kind of against all odds based on my past. So that's something that I learned, and it's a very powerful lesson, is you need to take the side of the people that you're working for. And when you don't take the side of the people that you're working for, then they're not going to like you, and they're going to respond because they don't feel like you're supporting them and giving them what they need. And I see this example time and time again of associates that lose their jobs, and law firms, and all these sorts of things. I mean, I've seen, a lot of times people will start out practicing law, they'll have gone to really good law schools, they'll be in these top firms, and they'll be like 6 months in, and they will lose their jobs. And often it's because they will bring in social positions on issues and try to get partners to inject and respond in a social issue type way when they just need work done, or they will be critical of different things that they're being assigned, and say it's not necessary, and do all these sorts of things. And so every year in large law firms, there are groups of people that come in and do this, and they are very quickly pushed out. They're usually pushed out not because of being argumentative and not taking people's side. They will find other reasons to criticize them. They will find errors in their work, which are always present in the work of most new attorneys, and they will push them out. I saw something very interesting when I was a summer associate in a law firm. After my second summer, I went to this, they had this meeting about pro bono, and that the firm did some pro bono, and they were going to talk about it. And we got into this meeting, and there was an associate that was in charge of pro bono, that was maybe a fourth year associate or something along those lines. And so all the summer associates and this associate and 3 or 4 partners got into this meeting and talked about the work that the firm did that was pro bono oriented, and how there were these opportunities for these summer associates when they became associates to do pro bono. And this mid-level associate that was in charge of pro bono at the firm was like maybe 2 doors down from me, and he I was there for the first 3 weeks, and for the most part, it seemed like he was doing really well. He was, you know, people were stopping by his office and giving him work, and he was talking about it. But he got into this meeting, and he started saying that, we have the lowest pro bono hours in the city for firms our size. It's not encouraged here. Like, this is, just all these critiques of the pro bono stuff that really put the partners in kind of made them look bad, made the firm look bad. And I remember leaving that meeting and, just not thinking much of it, because at the time I wasn't particularly interested in pro bono. And then I saw, like, people like stopping by his office and being extremely critical of his work, and him just being very stressed out. And within by the end of the summer, he was gone and no longer part of the firm. So I can, one little misstep like that, where you come out against your employer and say, put them in a negative light, especially in front of a group of summer associates, is fatal. So it's something to think about. Someone that's not supporting the firm, even someone that's been there a couple of years and does so publicly, is typically someone that's going to be out. When I first started practicing law, I heard other attorneys that say things like, I didn't go to law school to make photocopies, and think that they were sort of above that, like they shouldn't have to make photocopies. And I've even seen people, quit positions because of things like that. They just felt like it was beneath them, even though it may have been assigned by a partner. And so they would believe that these tasks are, not something they should be doing because they're too good for them. And so they're thinking all about their ego and themselves. This is very common. People will go into firms and they will be very critical of the work that the firm is giving them, whether it's doing photocopies or work that they think is beneath them. And they will make themselves known about that, and it will create problems for them almost immediately. And it's just the idea of not taking the side of people and not doing what's asked of you, and putting yourself first. And people that do that are not about what other people need from them, and they're not selfless. They're about what they need. And so people will quit jobs because of this, or move firms when they're not given immediate responsibility, which are things like maybe doing depositions as a young litigator, or maybe they'll say they're not being challenged enough, even though they may be at a top firm, and they will literally leave jobs because of that, and often very early in their careers because of these things, because they're thinking all about themselves and they're not thinking about what the firm needs from them at this stage in their career. And instead of realizing, and this is just crazy because it happens to a lot of associates at the largest firms, in the country. They do this, and it ends up hurting them tremendously, and they don't realize that they've been hired to contribute in any way possible, and it's not about what they need. It's about what whoever they're working for needs. I mean, I've seen so many examples of this. I saw a guy that I knew very well. He joined a firm, and he joined it wanting to do white collar litigation, and as a lateral associate. And the firm didn't have a lot of white collar because some case or that he would have been working on went away. So they gave him like commercial litigation work, and he went and said, "This isn't what I was hired to do. I resent this," and just really made himself known and was unhappy about getting these assignments. And this is someone that went to a top 5 law school, had come out of a very prestigious clerkship, and then another job before that. And within just a few weeks of acting like this, he lost his job. He was fired because of this attitude. And so people will do this all the time, especially often the most accomplished attorneys. They will be like, "This is the kind of work I want to do. I'm not going to, I resent if I'm not being given this sort of work, even though it may not be under the firm's control." So people will do things like this, and then they will get fired from firms, or they will leave expecting something else, and that'll fulfill their needs. I knew one associate who joined like a major firm outside of law school, and he worked very hard. There wasn't anything extraordinary about the quality of his work or his interpersonal skills, but he kept his head down, continued to do the things that were asked of him. And he was a litigation attorney, never got a lot of experience doing depositions or arguing motions in court, just was always kind of, doing paperwork and stuff behind the scenes. But his work also probably wasn't on par with the young attorneys trying to advance. He didn't catch on to things as quickly, needed to have his work reviewed a little bit more. But he, was a decent attorney, but he was at a firm where the majority of the other associates that were practicing with him had gone to Ivy League law schools and done extremely well there. And there were people in the firm from, every top law school you can imagine, like multiple Yale attorneys, tons of Harvard Law School attorneys that had been at the top of their class and Harvard Law Review and things like that. And he had gone to a local law school in Los Angeles, not really a local one, I guess, UCLA, but there was nothing extraordinary about his performance. He had just somehow gotten a position with that firm. And again, no one ever thought this guy was really going many places. No one thought that there was a good chance of him making a partner or anything. He just seemed like he was very average and didn't have the same academic qualifications that would, wow clients and things like that compared to people that he was practicing with. But he made it to his 6th or 7th year at the firm by just keeping his head down and doing what's asked of him. I want to just bring up one thing also briefly that is very important. So when you're working for partners in a law firm, or you're even working for clients if you're a partner, but when you're working for anyone else, your job is to be like a soldier, usually not a general. And what a soldier does is a soldier will do whatever they're asked. If you ask them to go sit in the ditch and fire at the opposing enemy when your odds of success or living aren't very good. I mean, that's what they do. They're soldiers. They will do what's asked of them. And a lot of people don't want to see themselves as soldiers. A soldier's job, anytime you're working for someone else, your job is to be a soldier and just do what's asked of you. And then you have generals, and generals are the ones that give orders and have opinions and things. And but you're not, you can't be a general until you've been a very good soldier. And soldiers are kept around. Anytime a soldier doesn't do what's asked of them, I think in the Army and stuff, they may be locked up. I don't know how it works, but they're in a lot of trouble. So this particular associate was tasked somehow at the last minute. He got put on a trial where he had to travel out of town with someone that was arguably the most powerful partner in the firm, whether it was because other people were busy or regardless of the reason, he was put on this trial, and the trial was going to be with the most powerful partner in the firm. Now, his job at this trial was not to go there and examine witnesses and give arguments. His job there was to help the partner. And so he spent the entire trial just getting the documents that the partner needed, anticipating documents that the partner needed, putting things in a very easy way to refer, suggesting documents that might have been helpful for the partner, watching the trial very closely, anticipating things that would be helpful to the partner. He knew and read everything about the trial inside out, so he could anticipate things that the partner might not even been familiar with because he might not have reviewed the documents as closely, but he did everything he possibly could. That's basically a gopher, not necessarily like a high-paid, powerful litigation attorney. And this was at a litigation firm, and he just, was there to do what he was told. And a lot of senior attorneys, had they sent other attorneys on this, on the case. They might have been angry that their job at the trial was to be a gopher. This partner didn't want other people arguing different things and being, being in the limelight during the trial. He just needed someone to work very, very hard for him during the trial. And so this, job that he had was just not giving him really the type of experience that someone at his level might have wanted of doing a trial. But he just threw himself in it, and he did everything he possibly could. And prior to going to the trial, he spoke with anybody that had anything to do with the case before it went to trial, asked them their opinions, wrote it down, just went overboard, worked very, very long hours prior to the trial, studying everything he could, becoming very familiar with it. And anybody that had written briefs on the case, because he hadn't done that, he read all the briefs, spoke to them about what they thought, and just really, really went out of his way. And when he got to trial, he did everything he possibly could to make sure the partner is well prepared. He would even write memos for him each day, just recapping what had happened at the last day, suggesting issues that could come up, and then creating bullet points of things that the partner might want to be aware of, and things, going out to breakfast with him each morning. When the partner got to breakfast, he might have been up very late that night, and he had everything prepared for him. And then he would be at breakfast discussing the case with him, and just having all these things very, very well prepared. And as a consequence of this, the partner had never had someone help him like that in a trial. The level of engagement, the level of service, the level of being selfless, not asking to have a chance to take, witness, to examine witnesses and stuff. He just did whatever he possibly could. And when he returned home from the trial, he very quickly, as soon as the opportunity came about, made this guy a partner in the firm. And no one could understand it until, the story was kind of told, because he, by all accounts, wasn't someone that was, it looked like that was ever going to happen. And so associates that might have thought they'd worked harder up until that point had better experience. All these people were, passed over, and this particular guy was able to make a partner because he gave the most powerful partner in the firm exactly what he wanted, and made him feel very grateful. They won a very big trial. I think they won, tens of millions, if not more than that, for the client, and they had a contingency fee, so the partner made a lot of money. So he gave that partner everything he wanted and needed, and as a consequence, that partner not only recognized him, but wanted to help him, as well in his career. So when you give people what they want and need, it's always about them and not you, and anticipating what other people need, and really going out of your way to make sure that you do that as well as you possibly can. And in terms of clients, you always need to anticipate when you do get business, what they need. You have to go out of your way to protect them and figure out what's important to them. And every client needs something, and the better the attorney is at giving it to them, the happier the client will be. Some clients don't want to spend a lot of money, or some clients don't feel like they have to spend a lot of money. I mean, I saw one partner recently that has a like a $30 million book of business, and he moved that business from kind of a very well-respected LA law firm to a large national firm based out of New York, Los Angeles, and all of a sudden, his clients were being charged probably 70% more for the same work. The law firm had a policy, kind of a way of doing things where not only were the rates more expensive, but they would overwork files and things like that. And this partner was there for making a lot of money, like at least $5 million a year. And he was there for only like 1.5 years. And he realized that that wasn't something that his clients needed to do. They didn't need to pay this much money. they didn't need to have these higher billing rates. And so he moved his clients back to a firm that was like a national Midwestern firm, but not a like one of the most prestigious ones. He moved them there, and his book of business actually increased. And his clients, of course, were very, very grateful because he was giving them what they needed. And that had been sort of the way he operated as an attorney throughout his career, from the time he was an associate until the point where I was speaking to him, which was probably maybe in his 17th or 18th year of practice. And as a consequence of all that, his income actually increased, and the amount of business he increased, and the loyalty his clients had to him increased. And so he's just giving them what they need, and not what was important to him, which could have been, working in this extremely prestigious firm and being a partner there, or whatever, or potentially having the opportunity to make more money by charging higher billing rates. He was giving his clients what they need. So it's like that in any practice area. So a divorce client, like someone going through a divorce, you sit down with them, they may not want to be told all the things that they need to do right away, or given a plan of action. They might just need someone to listen to them. And a lot of the most successful divorce attorneys, really, their role is not just to do the work and tell people what they need. It's to actually listen to them talk. They need someone to listen to them. And the ones that do that well are often very, very successful in divorce, even though they've heard the same sort of stories over and over again: betrayal, people growing apart, whatever it is. They will continually always be there to listen to people, and they will take calls from people at all hours just to complain about something related to the divorce they're going through. But that's their job. They do very well because of that. A litigation client often will need someone to take their side. So the best litigators will get a case, and they will inject hope into it. They will take the side of the person that's being sued. They will say it's wrong that they're being sued, and they will take their side and come up with all the arguments why that's not good. And then if they're suing on behalf of someone, they'll do the same thing. They'll take their side. And really, a lot of times litigation is not really about issues that are about issues that could be solved just if both sides sat down and talked about things rationally. It's typically that there's two sides with these diametrically opposed viewpoints of something, and they just need an attorney to take their side. And if they don't take their side, then it's not a good litigation attorney. The same thing with a business client. So a business client may want someone to tell them that a certain type of deal is possible, or whatever they can do to get it done. They want someone to basically give them reasons and different ways to do something, even though it may be very difficult, and take their side in the deal. And they will do that and be very, very good at it. And that's something that makes people successful. I had something very interesting. Someone that I knew very close, he's a friend of mine. He had been a associate at a very good firm in Los Angeles. I think it was Morgan, Lewis, or Bacchius or something like that. He was about 8 years into his career. He had a book of business that was actually pretty respectable, of clients that were giving him work. But like a lot of attorneys at that level, he decided that he wanted to go in-house and work for a company, like a large company in Los Angeles, in their in-house legal department. And actually, come to think of it, I don't think he really had very much business. He's just an associate. I don't remember exactly, but so he went in-house, and they started asking him to do all these things, like put together these different transactions and things. And he basically went to them, and what companies do, and what most businesses do, is they kind of play along the fringes. Like they will do things that are technically, maybe if not illegal, but they'll be stretching the bounds of acceptability. And so he got into this company that was aggressively growing, and they started asking him to do these sorts of assignments as their in-house attorney because they needed someone to take their side and help them get these things done. And instead of doing them, he went back to them and told them that doing this was unethical. He was risking his bar license and all these sorts of things that the company obviously didn't like. And so he got into this job. And then after like no more than a few months there, he got fired and was fired from an in-house job and didn't really have a lot of prospects to get back into a law firm because he left the law firm, and not a lot of prospects to get another in-house job because of the way he behaved. He was never asked to do anything illegal. He was just asked to kind of push the boundaries of things, which is what, frankly, most attorneys are expected to do. He just wouldn't do it there. And before, he'd been working for a very conservative law firm that may not have done as much of this, but this is what he did, and this is why he got fired, even though he'd gone to a top 10 law school, had very, very good experience, and could do the work. He just came across as someone that wasn't on the side of the in-house employer, and that helped him lose his job. So it's the same thing. An entrepreneur that's starting a business, the public will need to believe in that business in order for it to grow. A law firm partner that you're working for is going to need someone that they feel is going to help them and support them, that will be a soldier and do whatever they need and support them regardless of what it is. I mean, the partner could be representing very bad clients, and they'll still need someone to help them and not to let that get in the way. Regardless of what it is, the world's about helping others, and especially other people that you work for, but then clients and all sorts of things. And so your entire success as a person, whether it's friendships and relationships or social media, your whole professional success, and then the corresponding economic success you'll get is always going to come down to how well you meet the needs of others in the world. What entrepreneurs do that are successful is they always find some sort of untapped need that people have, and then they create products or services to do that. And people that are able to do that become extraordinarily rich. I continually am amazed because I read the news every day of all these people that are in their early 20s and very young that are becoming billionaires. And what they're doing is they're figuring out what other people need, and they're giving them that in response. And it's very, very powerful. If you meet the needs of others effectively, you're going to become very, very successful no matter what you do. And so you need to always think about, what can you do to really meet the needs of others as effectively as possible. And anybody that's successful in any profession is doing that. You may not realize that. You may think they're successful just because of their qualifications or that they're lucky. But typically what those people do are they're just giving the people that they work for exactly what that person needs. And they're not there to take, they're there to give more value than they receive. And so then they may look like they're receiving. So people that become very, very successful, like it's the case of like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, he's giving people all these connections and validation and things to the tune of, not just like 10 people, but, hundreds of millions of people. And that's what makes people rich. That's what makes people successful when they're giving people, when they're fulfilling needs that sometimes people may not even realize they have, but they're fulfilling them on just a massive scale. It's like what people do when they come out with products that are revolutionary or whatever it is. They're giving people value that just vastly exceeds what they're paying for, and that is why people succeed. So the law is a service business, and because it's a service business, it means trying to figure out what other people want and fulfilling their needs. And if you're able to do that really well, you will become extremely successful. And if you're not able to do that, then you won't succeed. It's as simple as that. I mean, people that fulfill other people's needs succeed. And people will only open their pocketbooks and pay you, whether or not you're running your own business or working for other people, to the extent you're giving them exactly what they want and fulfilling their needs. And And everybody you're working for inside of a law firm and everybody in the law firm world actually needs something. So, law firms need associates who are smart and willing to work hard, that are going to make the partners in the firm feel respected and important. So you need to also make people feel important by how you treat them and how you respect them. The same thing with clients. They have to impress clients, make the clients feel important. And then they have to make the partners look as good as possible to the clients, meaning they have to talk up the partners every chance they get. If they're just in a meeting with them alone, they have to, build them up and behind their back. And then they have to build them up to other associates in the firm, even though other associates may be complaining about people. They have to really be building up the people around them and making those people, making the people that are giving them work feel good about themselves. And law firms also need partners who are able to bring in business and train associates and work hard and generate revenue. And it actually goes, it's interesting inside of law firms, when you are able to make things like secretaries feel good about themselves and validated, then they will say nice things about you to partners that you may be working for. If the secretary works for a partner, they will go out of their way to make that partner look good. Meaning, if the partner makes a mistake, they'll cover for them. The same thing with an associate. The associate makes a mistake, they'll cover them, or they won't let them make that mistake. And so, even when you're an associate in a law firm, your relationships with paralegals and legal secretaries are very important because, to the extent you make them feel good about themselves, which they need, and say nice things to them about their work, which they need, and make them feel good personally by complimenting them and not yelling at them and stuff and giving them what they need. That will also help you. So everyone around you, you need to be giving them what they need. And when you're a partner in a law firm, your job is to bring in business and give the law firm what it needs. And you may have to, if you generate $10 million worth of business, maybe they only pay you $2 million or 20% of it. And maybe someone else could pay you more, I don't know. But if you're helping the firm and building up the firm, then you're going to have employment security, and you're just going to be much better off. And same thing with clients. If you're giving clients what they need, and you're anticipating their needs and protecting them, and not charging them as much as you possibly could, not billing them for inconsequential things, and showing them that you're writing down their bills, or having associates, mid-level associates do work instead of senior associates and other partners to save them money, and then making them look good, and doing everything you can and keeping them out of trouble, then they will reward you as well. And, and then, clients, they also need people to protect their representations and, their reputations, and they need people that will hire the best people possible to do work on their behalf inside of the law firm, and just run a culture that gives them the best possible results. And so each step of the process is really about giving other people what they need and then fulfilling those needs. And attorneys that understand their role in this process will do very, very well. And what I've taught you today so far is really one of the most important components of succeeding in a law firm that most people don't realize. When people get into law firms, they're just thinking often about themselves, their salary, billing the minimum number of hours, all these sorts of things, maybe working remotely if they want to, like all these things that are important to them, but not maybe, not important to others. So the more you tend to focus on what you need, typically the more issues that you're going to have that are going to hold yourself back. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't switch law firms and so forth. There's nothing wrong with getting a new job if you want to go to a place that's going to challenge you more or give you more of what you need, and so you can advance in your career. But any place you go, you should aim to leave as someone that has made a really good impression on the people that you work for by over delivering and giving them more of what they need, because those people will become often general counsels of corporations that will hire you because they remember you, or if you're applying for other jobs in the future, they will give you good recommendations, or they will, introduce you to, you'll have a network of them. So they will say other good things about you to people in the market. They will, as partners, may refer work to you that they could have, that they could have referred to other people instead of you, and they will, they will do that because you did a good job for them. And so many people become very, very successful throughout their careers by just leaving a really good taste in everyone's mouth they work for. A lot of times people will leave firms because of conflict, or because of their work being, because of not doing as good of a job as they could on assignments, and not really looking at things from other people's point of view. So the more you do that in every job that you have, even if it's a job you don't like, the more problems you're going to have and the less success you're going to have in your career. So interesting stories about me. Before I was even in law school, which was, a long time ago, potential attorneys and other people have always been very obsessed with salaries. I started learning about law firm salaries when I was very young, and right in my first year of college, what they talked about, and so people were always obsessed with that. And a lot of the motivation that a lot of people that decide to go to law school early in their careers, or when they're even high school seniors, or very or first year college students, is often motivated by money, and not necessarily what the practice of law is about. They're just thinking about, how do I make money? And they think that law school is a good way to do that. And they don't often consider what they need to do to succeed as being attorneys, or really even think much about being attorneys, other than they need to go to law school and get a job. And it's very, very common. So if you remove selfishness from what you're doing, then you're going to be much more successful. Attorneys, are selfish. Always are going to think about taking, like, what are they going to get? Maybe they don't have to work as many hours, or maybe they think about how they can manipulate various situations to get what they want. And I've seen, so many people actually go to solo practitioners and end up spending more money than they would have if they even used a large reputable firm, because the solo practitioner will often rip them off, because they're probably solo practitioners a lot of times because they're just looking out for what they need, and that kind of got them in that situation. Sometimes a solo practitioner will look at a large client as a chance to bill a lot of money, or any client, as opposed to getting repeat business and doing what that person wants. And people will often go to attorneys and have a bad experience because that person is all about themselves. Or sometimes, they ended up a solo practitioner because wherever they were working, they were kind of taking, and they took as much as they could, as fast as they could, and ended up hurting them, and often were unable to take orders, or contribute at the level they were expected, and so they ended up solo practitioners, and they want to take things on their own terms, and do everything for themselves, and never really have long-term clients, because clients will run away after being taken advantage of, and their problem's not solved. It's actually, I was talking about divorce attorneys earlier, but that's very common with divorce attorneys. If a divorce attorney gets a wealthy client, they will look at it as an opportunity to take as much as they possibly can, as fast as they possibly can. Very, very common. They will, bill them as much money as they can, and they will do all sorts of things to basically take advantage of them once they realize that they have money. And then once that person realizes it, they will try to find a new attorney. But this is a process that's repeated with clients, with attorneys all the time. And if you're succeeding if you want to succeed at a very high level in the legal profession, you really need to learn how you can remove selfishness from what you're doing, because this is what the most successful attorneys do in the largest law firms in particular. They're very good team players and are supporting all of the people that they work for, and doing and then supporting their clients in the same way. And they're often not these people that you would think that would be like extremely power hungry and all that sort of thing. They're actually often people that are just very kind of down to earth, but giving supporting others a wrong way. Even people that are developing maybe a reputation for being ruthless are still contributing a lot more. They're doing the same thing with their clients. They may be very ruthless on behalf of their clients, which clients love because someone is fighting very hard for them. But they're not out to take advantage of people. They're out to do the best work they possibly can. So just kind of a conclusion, you will get in trouble in your career, and your success will definitely be affected by the more self-seeking you are, and the belief that you must take. Your success will be limited by the extent that you are kind of looking at yourself as more of a taker than the opposite, than a giver. And this is really one of the most important parts of being successful. And so if you are calculating and stepping on the toes of others, against others, not for them, taking sides in political issues, that's always going to affect you negatively. And people will retaliate against that in all sorts of different ways. They will not give you work. They will criticize your work when it doesn't deserve criticism. They won't help you when they could, and all sorts of other things. I mean, one of the things that's extremely important for attorneys is to get mentors inside of law firms, and you only will get a mentor to the extent that that person sees you as the most diehard supporter of theirs, compared to their other alternatives of people to mentor. If you get a mentor, the mentor is going to protect you, and they're going to do everything that they can to take your side and to guide you, but not unless you fully commit to them, and that's what they need. I've seen, when I was in law school, I saw some people, one person in particular, get into Stanford Law School. She sent her application on a Monday, I believe, and she had a very powerful mentor that was a professor at the University of Chicago Law School, and he wrote her a recommendation, and she told him, when she'd sent her application, he made a phone call, and she had submitted her application to Stanford, literally mailed it on a Monday, and got an acceptance letter like the next Monday or Tuesday, which is just crazy. I mean, she did this in the fall, before they were selecting people, and that's how powerful it is when you have a very strong mentor. And she had worked for him starting in her maybe first year of college or second year of college, and done like an incredible job for him. And she certainly had exceptional grades and LSAT scores, but this is the sort of thing that happens. I believe that I got into law school because I did the same thing with a professor that I worked for, and really went out of my way to help. So mentors will help you to the extent you do that. I remember during the financial crisis, I had a cousin of mine that was working at Sherman and Sterling in Hong Kong, and all the attorneys there from the U.S. were capital markets, like securities attorneys, and they had just completely run out of work. It was because of the financial crisis, and so they let him go, and everyone else, and there was a partner in that office, and so he left. And then about 3 weeks after losing his job, that partner called him and said, "I found a job for you with a client of mine," and the client was in Bermuda. And so he went and joined this company. It was an insurance company in Bermuda, and has been there for, I guess, like, almost 20 years, and it's been very, very successful there. He's got multiple houses. He's got a house in Bermuda, a house in New York, apartment in New York, a house in suburbs, and just been incredibly successful, making well into the seven figures because he supported someone and had a really good mentor when he was at Sherman and Sterling, and then I'm sure did the same thing when he got into his next job. So he was a team player, put his head down, did really good work. And when people lose jobs in law firms, it's often not just because of their work quality, it's because of these other things where they're not necessarily helping others. And some people will try to play games and manipulate people and make things about them as opposed to others. I was reading a story in the news just yesterday about the Trump administration, and there was an attorney that had worked for Trump and had been successful with him and had been working with him since he became president the first time. And that guy started basically asking people that potentially could be in the administration for consulting fees, so he could get them an audience with Trump to potentially be on his administration. And all this came out, and this guy, of course, lost his job working for Trump, and all these news stories were about that. So he made his position about himself and not the person he was working for, and lost his job and probably destroyed his entire career. So this is just what happens. I mean, if you make things about yourself, you will have all sorts of problems. And when this happens to people, like when they lose jobs and when they get earlier in their careers or even later in their careers, like this attorney working for Trump, then their career stopped and they're over, and they don't know why. They say, "Oh, it's unethical that that this company is trying to do this," or "I didn't sign up to do this type of work." And but people that do this are that come from this kind of mentality are become bitter and angry, and they don't know what's happened, and they're just unsuccessful. One thing that I thought was very interesting, and I've told this story a lot before, but years ago I had this associate that was in New York, and he'd worked for a large law firm, and in the practice area he was in, every Monday morning, a partner in Boston at like 8 in the morning would email out assignments for people to grab at 8 in the morning. And so all the associates would come in, and they would be waiting at their desk at 7:50 in the morning for this email with these different assignments to come through, so they could grab them and be the first person to grab them and respond and get these assignments. And so this particular associate had gone to Columbia Law School, had very, very good record, a very, very good record. And he said, it's not my role to grovel for work and come into work at, 7:30 in the morning when everybody else, when I normally come in at like 9:30 with all the other associates, which people tend to do and, come to work later in New York. And so he didn't get assignments, he didn't get hours, and very, very quickly was let go because he wasn't giving this woman what she wanted, was someone to be there to get assignments early in the morning, and lost him his job. And he was actually unemployed for a long time. I remember getting him an interview. It's very, very difficult to get positions when you're let go in New York because they have their choice of lots and lots of people, and they're always going to choose someone that's employed. And I remember I got him one interview with a firm, like a big firm, and he went in his first interview, and it was with this partner, and the partner was reading his resume and said, "Wait, so you're not working there anymore?" And he said, "Yes." And without even asking for an explanation, the partner just said, "I'm sorry, this isn't going to work out," and canceled all the rest of his interviews that day because he was unemployed. So when you don't provide people a product that they want, you don't give them the way they want it, then you're not going to succeed. So I'll take a quick break just for a few minutes, and then when we come back, I will take questions. This is a live webinar, so I will answer as many questions as everyone has. You can ask questions about anything related to this webinar or just sort of questions you may have in general. So I'll be back in just a minute and we will do questions. Thank you. Just 1 second. So I will questions. I noticed there are some questions. Good. So there's not a lot of questions, so we'll go through those. But oh, sorry. 1 second. Questions. Yeah, so just as a preliminary matter, though, I mean, it's very impressive to listen to this sort of information. Most attorneys will never, and even potential attorneys that are in law school, never learn these kind of lessons that you learned today. And by learning this, you are definitely helping your career quite a bit because most people don't learn this. And if you do, the lesson you learned today is probably one of the most important lessons you could learn in your entire legal career because it covers everything from your resume to your your interviewing skills to the work that you do once you get into a law firm that frankly most people don't understand. Most people don't understand that when their resume isn't well received by firms that they would stand a decent chance of getting into, it's because of their resume and it's not speaking to other people's needs. The same thing with interviewing. When you go into interviews, most people make this mistake. And then, of course, when you get into the job, in whatever job you're trying to do, people make the same mistake. So this sort of stuff is just extremely important and something that very few people do. And why people, frankly, don't succeed. I mean, it's usually doesn't have much to do with anything else besides that. People can always teach you how to do better work. You can always improve, and you should improve. If you don't, then it's going to always create, if you're not giving people what they need, it's always going to create issues. So the first question is, if you leave out other practice areas, will you misinterpret what you did in the past if you spent 50% doing corporate work, but 50% in other practice areas? So anytime you're applying for a corporate job, what you would want to do on your resume, like if you've done 50% corporate in the past and maybe 50% of the practice areas, is you would want to basically list all the corporate work you did up front and just highlight that. And really, you don't want to talk about other practice areas. And you certainly could. You could mention it if you want, maybe in 1 or 2 lines. You could say also did some litigation, but you really do not want to talk about anything other than what the firm is seeking. So when firms are hiring people, they're always looking to hire specialists, unless it's a smaller firm that does where all the attorneys kind of move between different practice areas. Law firms are always looking to hire specialists, and the reason for that is because specialists are committed to a practice area. They're more like their experience that they've had in the past is going to fit in with the specialist advertisement. If you look at the advertisements of pretty much any law firm seeking someone, you will see that those law firms are always seeking someone who's a specialist in a given practice area. They're not asking for people to do multiple things. I mean, I just was looking at jobs this morning, and I remember looking at one attorney, and all he did was probate work, which, you know, most trust and estates attorneys do probate. They will do general trust and estates, but he just wanted to do probate work, and there was a job in the area of the country he was in, which I think was just some part of North Carolina, that was only for probate. So that law firm, I'm pretty confident, will interview him because he does only probate. If he lists a bunch of different other types of trust and estates work on his resume, he probably wouldn't be able to get that interview. So having one practice area is very, very helpful. What I recommend people do is, I had not too long ago, like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had an attorney I was working with. It was also in trust and estates, and his first basically 6 years of practice, he was doing workers' compensation, like personal injury, like all these things that were not related to trust and estates. So I took his resume, and instead of drawing attention to all these things that didn't have anything to do with trust and estates, I just named the firm he was at and said he was a trust, you know, that he was an associate there. I didn't have any description of the other type of work he did. I just said he was an associate. He was, excuse me, something's really weird with my camera today. I said that he was just an associate there. I didn't have to list anything else. And then the positions he's had over the past 3 years, one job he was doing trust and estates, and then just kind of general litigation. I told him to just highlight trust and estates, and then his last 2 jobs, he had a job per year. I had him just highlight nothing but trust and estates, and we took his resume from basically, if he was applying to 20 firms, he might be lucky to get 1 interview. And after that resume, he started getting, like, you know, he was in an area of the country, Orange County, where there was a lot of demand. He started getting the majority of jobs he was applying for. And not only that, but he was hired as a 10th year associate at a small firm where they did, you know, there weren't a lot of people at his level, as a 10th year associate, as opposed to a 3rd or 4th year associate. So being able to emphasize experience that's only relevant to what an employer is looking for is very, very important. And not listing things that don't have anything to do with your practice area is also very important. This guy's particular resume also did a lot of other things that we removed that got him more interviews. So some of the things he did were, he listed that for the past 10 years, in addition to being an attorney, he was also a real estate agent. I took that off. That's not something that any employer would want to see, because it detracts from being a specialist in a practice area. Then he did things like, for whatever reason, he listed his GPA, which was very average at a not good law school. We took that off. He did things like list that he'd gotten the highest grade in a constitutional law class in law school on his resume. We took that off. And then he just had all these things that were kind of irrelevant, and removed those. And so having a resume that's just kind of focused on what people need, doesn't talk a lot about things that the law firm's not seeking, is very important, because when you do that, you're basically giving them what they want. One example that I like to talk about, and if you've been on a lot of my webinars, you're probably familiar with this example. But say you had something very seriously wrong with you, like say you had, I don't know, lung cancer, and you needed to find a doctor to help you with lung cancer. Well, you would, if you went to the website of different doctors you had to select from, and you saw one doctor was a general cancer doctor, the other doctor might do cancer, lung cancer, but then they also do bladder cancer and pancreatic cancer, and then you went to one doctor's website that said they did nothing but lung cancer. And not only that, they specialized in the type of lung cancer that you had. And not only that, but they'd written all these papers about it. They'd done their residency doing this type of lung cancer, and then they'd done a fellowship after that, and they've been practicing nothing but this for the past 20 years. Well, your obvious choice would be the expert, and you would select this person that's a specialist because it could be a fatal disease. So that's what clients do when they're looking for attorneys. Clients want to hire people that are experts in a given practice area. They don't care. You may do a bunch of different things unless it's a smaller firm. And so it's the same thing that law firms are looking for. So why would you make your resume about things that have nothing to do with what they're seeking? So if you want to list them, then you really need to de-emphasize them. You have to do everything you possibly can to just make yourself look like one sort of person. Because if you're not, the law firm is going to hire someone that looks like an expert in that, because that's what they need, and that's also what their clients need. So you need to look like an expert, and it's very important for anything that you want to do. You need to look like that's all you do. When people get very sick, they always tell you, at least rich people do, like that. I found this great doctor. This is all they do. They talk about the qualifications, and they're very proud of it. Well, it's the same thing with clients hiring attorneys or whoever. They may want to hire an attorney that is the best criminal attorney in the country if they're like a big famous person and have a lot of money and did cases very similar to theirs. They won't go to someone that isn't well known. They'll want someone that's just got a reputation doing nothing but that. So it's very, very important. It's very, very important in interviews to look like that. I see these resumes also all the time of people that can't get jobs. And what's particularly the most interesting to me of people that can't get jobs are people that have these very, very good qualifications, meaning they have gone to, a top 5 law school. They've done very well there, and then they get a job out of law school, and they, for whatever reasons, they may quit because there's things that they don't like about the firm, or they may be fired. And a lot of these resumes, it's more common now than ever. We'll talk about when they list their experience, we'll talk about all this pro bono work they did while they were at the firm, and they will often just lead with it. They won't. If they were like a corporate attorney, they will lead talking about pro bono work and just nothing but pro bono work, and then they'll have a couple of lines at the end that talk a little bit about their practice area, but they might have like 3 or 4 lines talking about this pro bono work, and they wonder why they're not getting jobs. And it's not helping them. I remember there was after September 11th in 2000. I remember there was this guy that was very, very, very well qualified for a job and for several jobs, and listed all this stuff on his resume about being a Muslim. And I'm not saying that you can't be Muslim, but this just did not go over well with law firms in New York. And compared to, he wasn't getting any interviews when people in his practice area that weren't listing things like that were getting a lot of interviews. So he probably would have been much better off not having that on his resume. People do all sorts of things on their resume. They will list their political affiliations multiple times and just things that have nothing to do with it. So if you don't do that on your resume, then you're going to be much, much better off. And it's a very powerful piece of advice I'm giving you right now, because so many people don't do this. And because they don't do this, it dramatically affects their ability to get a job. So just remember that your resume needs to be focused on one practice area. This is what you would want if you were seeking a doctor or needed someone for something. If you were accused of some horrible crime, you would not go to someone that did 5 different types of work. You would want to find someone that did nothing but criminal law, and preferably the best person, and preferably someone that could handle cases that were very similar to what you had done in the past. And so that is something that you would really want and need, and something that would be, that law firms want, clients want. So you need to always think about that. There's nothing wrong with being honest on your resume if that's what you want to do. But people need to look at your resume, and what they need to do is they need to get a sense. It needs to look like you do nothing but that practice area. And if you look like you do nothing but that practice area, and that's the sense that people get from reading it, you will get a lot more interviews than if you don't do that. So very, very important. And I hope you will do that. Okay, let's see. And again, this piece of resume advice I just gave you, it will increase your odds of getting interviews if you do it well, probably 5 or 10 times. And you know, just being on this webinar today, I mean, very smart that you're on it, even this day before a holiday, because just learning what I've talked about today could just dramatically change the direction of your career just on your resume alone. So, I mean, it could change your lifetime earnings by millions of dollars, what you just learned. So I hope you have learned it and think about it with your resume, and then of course the other stuff too. How does asking what a prospective employer wants explain to them that you would be good at doing what they need? Sometimes it seems like the applicant needs to loop back around in some way. They are not a salesman from a consulting company that will select an important consultant for the prospective employer. Instead, they are the prospective employer themselves. Okay, so when you go into interviews, the way to position yourself is someone that really wants to do whatever it is that the law firm needs. And what partners need someone that will do the best possible job they can. And that's like their number one requirement. They want someone that's going to commit and work very hard and give the partner and other partners what they need. So the questions that I brought up earlier, like things like, what would success look like in this position? How have people that have succeeded here, like what have they done well? What is it that, would make me, if I was working for you, what would make me one of the top associates? Like what would I need to do in the first 30, 60, 90 days? Like no one that goes into interviews ever asks these questions. And this is the huge difference. I mean, if you just go in to your interviews with that sort of attitude, then you're going to be very, very successful. If you go in with an attitude that you're just there to serve others and not necessarily, just other things, then, and you leave them with that impression, you're going to do very, very well. This is what people do that are able to get every job that they interview. They're able to really come across that way. Now, one thing I didn't say that's very, very important is when you're interviewing with a law firm as an associate, you will typically interview with partners, so you need to give them what they need. But when you're also interviewing with associates, and so if associates are saying negative things about you, then sometimes you will not get hired because of that. So when you go in and interview with associates, you need to come across as, especially if you're interviewing with people at your level, you need to come across as non-threatening. So you come across as non-threatening by being nice to them and answering their questions, but not giving the impression that you're going to make them look bad or work much harder than them or whatever. And it's especially the case if you have like much better educational qualifications or something along those lines. So you need to give associates the impression that you're not a threat. And so that's a very, very important piece of advice, meaning you're not going to talk to them and say you want to be the highest biller and things like that. If you do that, they're not going to like you and give you bad recommendations. But if you make them feel comfortable and like you're going to get along with them, you're going to be kind of part of the group and so forth, then they're going to like you and they're going to give you good recommendations. But you need to talk to employers in a way that is that matches what they're seeking, not what is important to you. You need to look like someone that's going to come in and do exactly what they need and give them everything that they need. And that's probably the most important piece of advice I can give you, is that the better you do at that, the more jobs you're going to get. And then when you get into your job, doing the same thing. So very, very important. And thank you for asking these questions. These are great questions, by the way. And if anyone has any more, I would answer this too. So you said firms push out associates for based on reasons they did not like about them, but find other ways to criticize them and find errors in their work and make them leave. How should those associates explain why they leave, as the human resources will give a different reason, errors in their work or bad performance, as opposed to the real reason, what they said about pro bono work to summer associates of the hiring firms, ask about circumstances of why they left. Okay, so when you leave a firm and get recommendations from them or have to give references and things to future employers, here's what happens. And I just had a situation like this happen recently. I had one associate that, again, very, very strong. I think she went to NYU Law School. She started off her career at a very big firm and then had moved to another firm and then another firm after that. And so she was very close to getting a job with a firm that really wanted to make her an offer. And because of that, this firm wanted to check her references. So when they checked her references, what happened is this partner called up all of the references she gave the previous firm, the people that she worked for, and then all of them said, it's not our policy to give references. We only will confirm dates of employment. And this happened with like 5 or 6 firms, and not 5 or 6 firms, like 5 or 6 references. Now, what that means when that happens is, of course, they can give positive references if you did a good job. But instead of giving negative references and risking getting sued or whatever, they will say things like that. So if you didn't do a good job at a law firm and you're getting references, this is what happens when if you haven't done a good job, and this is what happens with references. Sometimes I've seen companies that are like professionals at checking references, and if you give that sort of answer, sometimes they will say, would you hire the person now if they applied again? And if the answer to that is, well, I don't know, I can't make that, I can't make that, decision, or no, then that's a bad reference. So that's kind of what happens with references. And so if you didn't do a good job at the firm and you were let go for reasons like that, that's the risk you will face with references. Now, I can tell you a couple different points that are kind of important. Large law firms and even mid-sized law firms are much less likely to check references than smaller law firms. So I've always noticed that the smaller law firms will often check references, whereas the larger law firms will not. And so you have less risk of having your references checked and this sort of thing happen if you're applying to the larger firms. I think there's also a realization at a lot of large law firms that people make mistakes earlier in their careers, meaning they don't understand these political rules all the time, and or sometimes maybe they don't understand how to do good work or turn in good work. So there's more of a realization that people will make mistakes earlier in their career. So the large law firms, especially if you have really good academic qualifications and so forth, are much less likely to look the other way and not be concerned about it, because people will often do their best work and be the best associates at their second law firm or their third law firm, as opposed to the first, because they will learn along the way. But not everybody will. So the smaller law firms are more likely to check your references, and human resources most often, especially professional human resources, are not going to answer questions that would reflect negatively on you. Their job is just to kind of confirm dates of employment. It's only when references are asked for partners and things like that there's issues, and that's your biggest risk, is when you're in a situation where that's happening if you didn't do a good job. But typically references aren't going to follow you throughout your career, and the substantial majority of firms, meaning if you were to apply to or get to the offer stage or close to an offer with 10 large law firms, you might be, one, might check your references. If it was mid-sized law firms, same thing, maybe one, if that, would check your references. Smaller law firms, maybe 3 out of 10. So you shouldn't worry too much about references because they typically aren't going to be checked most of the time. They can be, but most of the time they won't be. Sometimes you'll be asked to give references and they won't check them. It just depends on the firm, but most law firms are not going to check them. In my experience, it's not common. It's just, it doesn't happen most of the time. The example I gave you of the associate that was talking about the pro bono work. I mean, his problem was he was basically embarrassing the firm in front of a bunch of summer associates, and not only that, but coming across as someone that didn't support the firm, and creating issues that he could have discussed behind closed doors, and putting himself on the side of doing pro bono work as opposed to the side of the firm that needs different types of work done. So this sort of thing is just a very common mistake that people make in their careers, and when things like that happen, they don't really understand why. The example that I gave you when I was clerking, and not taking the side of my judge politically, and also politically meaning in the opinions I wrote, but politically also meaning with other people in the courthouse, is obviously he could come to me and say, I don't like the fact that you're not making decisions based on my right-wing philosophies and way of looking at the world. Instead, work is attacked. So that's typically what law firms will do. They will find reasons to criticize your work and make it seem like you're the problem for your work, as opposed to where you're coming from politically, because that is, that just can create all sorts of additional problems for them. So law firms will always make it about your work, typically, if you're going against them in any sort of way or not making people feel supported. Very, very common to do that. And it's just kind of how it works, and just something to always kind of be aware of. If you're experiencing problems in a law firm, it's typically less because of your work and something along those lines. If there's problems with your work and you're able to take feedback and improve your work, and you still find these things happening, then it's usually for other reasons. Okay, next question. And thank you, everyone, again, for asking these questions. These are great questions. What about balance? You seem to be saying an associate's wants and needs are irrelevant, and they should do whatever is asked of them and hope to be rewarded with more work and job security. How does avoid being taken advantage of or becoming burnt out, at which point the firm will undoubtedly quickly replace you? How is this approach to be balanced with the fact that there is a global mental health crisis in the legal profession? Yes, there is a mental health crisis in the legal profession. It's also in the medical profession. It's also with dentists and things. I mean, there's a lot of mental health crises, but you make a very good point about being taken advantage of. And this is something that, depending on how you look at it, happens in a lot of large law firms. But what happens in large law firms is they're paying you for that. They're paying you great sums of money with the expectation that you're kind of going to front load all this compensation and money earlier in your career in exchange for giving a lot of hours and not having a future, as opposed to taking a lower paying job where you might not, you might have more of a future. The caveat to that is when you do go to work, you should try as a law student or a young attorney to get work in the largest law firms possible, because that will give you a pedigree. So you should try to get a job in the best law firm you can, and it will also train you in doing the work in a very sophisticated level. Because when you're at a large law firm, the large law firm has large clients, and large clients are able to pay large legal bills. And because you're able to pay large legal bills, you're taught to go into a lot of depth on various legal matters and learn how to look at things at a much deeper level than you might learn at a firm where the clients aren't paying as much money. And you'll also learn how to do much better work in terms of the final quality of the work that you turn in than you would be able to do at a law firm that didn't pay as much money. And you'll also be, or whose clients didn't pay as much money. You'll also be surrounded by more motivated and highly credentialed attorneys whose backgrounds and ways of looking at problems will also rub off on you. So there are a lot of advantages to being in a large law firm earlier in your career. But the most important thing to learn is, what happened to people in my position before me. So that means what happens in this particular law firm. So if you get into a law firm like that and you watch what's happening to senior associates, are they leaving? Are they making these people partner, or what's happening to them, and at what point are they leaving? Then you do need to look out for your own self-interest and figure out when you're going to leave, especially if you can't take it. And a lot of people realize this after 1 year or 2 years. It's just too much for them, especially at firms where you're staying up all night and exposed to all these stresses that they just don't like it. Then you need to find a place where you're not doing that, so you have a better quality of life. And when you find a place like that, you also need to look at what's happening to people that do well here, and what does their career progression look like? Are they staying? Or if they're leaving, like at a large law firm, if they're leaving, like, what are they leaving for? Are they leaving as associates to become partners in smaller law firms? Are they going in-house? Like, what is happening to their career? So you always ask those questions when you're at a law firm to figure out what the career progression is, because there are law firms, a substantial percentage of the biggest and best law firms in the country, where people are overworked and the law firms don't necessarily look out for their future in the way they could, but they do. A lot of them do, and where people leave, and after all this, time of giving the best years of their life often, and they don't have opportunities. The way it worked initially at large law firms, the first large law firm in the country was Cravath, Swaine and Moore, and they were the ones that they developed this kind of method. They would go to top law schools like Harvard, and they would offer starting salaries that were 2 to 3 times what other smaller firms at the time would be able to pay. And then they didn't have a lot of openings for people to be a partner there. So after 6 or 7 years, they would put those attorneys in-house with their clients. And then because they were attorneys from that law firm in-house, they would look out for the firm and continue to know they're the best partner to give work to and all this sort of stuff. And that kind of benefited them with getting the smartest people to work for them, but not necessarily advancing them and putting them in in-house positions. And so large law firms like it when people go in-house, because when those attorneys go in-house, they're able to often go to partners inside of the law firm where they worked and give them work. And so that sort of symbiotic relationship still exists. So large law firms love it when you go in-house, and will often help you, if you do very good work there, getting jobs in-house with their clients. And obviously, there's much more of a work-life balance in an in-house job than there is in a large law firm, or there's much better work-life balance often between working at different small and mid-sized law firms. And you have to find a place that works best for you. So I hope that answers your question. It's a very good question. And there's no reason that if you don't like it and it's just burning you out, that you should remain in a law firm where it's affecting your quality of life. Because I've seen all sorts of things happen to people that they become addicted to the money working there. They can't leave because they suddenly have mortgages and car payments and schools and things to pay for, and they're kind of hostages there. It can drastically affect their happiness, their quality of life, and all sorts of things. So it's important to take care of yourself, and it's definitely not worth it if that doesn't improve you. Great questions too, by the way. Thank you everyone who's asking. It's just very impressed with the questions today. Excellent. Okay, how do you balance doing what the boss needs if the client is pushing boundaries. In the example, the attorney thinks he's afraid of risking a bar license, or do you not believe that in the client and don't think the client is being truthful, which does which will come out later in the case. You need to be an advocate. So if you look at your average criminal law attorney, most of their clients are going to be guilty. So they typically will not ask enough questions to figure out if the client's guilty. They will just take the side of the client based on what they have. That's not malpractice. If the client's asking the attorney to push boundaries, there are attorneys. I mean, it's very common that will advise them and tell them they can't do it, and that's perfectly okay. I don't hear of attorneys losing their bar license inside of law firms, especially as associates. I don't actually know if I've ever heard it in the case of an associate. I'm sure it's happened. I mean, I've heard of associates trading inside secrets and deals and things that people have manipulated for the stock market and getting their bar license revoked. But I certainly haven't heard of it very often. So if you're working for a partner in a law firm, the partner is usually the one that's going to be liable for anything. You're not going to be liable just for working for the partner unless you're just flagrantly breaking the law. Then you're not going to be liable. So, but your job is to be an advocate and give other people what they need to do assignments that you're asked to do. To not, you certainly can question assignments, like the necessity of doing them. But if you're told to go through and just do whatever you're asked, you have to do it, and then that's kind of your job. So, and if you want to ask a follow-up question of that would be great, because I think I answered, but I'm not completely sure that I did. So you can ask a follow-up question. Hello, I attended a international university and recently, passed the California bar. I will be joining a mid-sized medical malpractice firm. I did great on the interview, basically because I'm a nurse as well, but I don't feel like I have the relevant civil experience. I was a criminal prosecutor in my country. Is it okay to constantly ask questions during my initial weeks of practice? Are there resources that can help me better prepare for the new job? How much training is expected in law firms? So typically, if you're joining like a firm like that does medical malpractice or any form of personal injury, there are books that are printed that will be for personal injury, and they'll also be for medical malpractice. There's going to be books that will be in the law library, but there's also printed books and treatises and things that deal with how to practice that law in a particular state. So they will talk about all the different motions and all the different deposition tactics and all the different types of medical issues that could come up. I'm assuming you're doing medical malpractice plaintiff's work, or you may be doing medical malpractice defense. There are still going to be those resources. As a young attorney inside of a law firm, your role is going to be to basically do a lot of paperwork, which means you'll be doing motions and discovery and things like that, which is very easy to learn. You certainly can ask questions. The best source of questions, typically what you will do is you will, a partner will give you an assignment. Sometimes it'll be a senior associate, or someone a little bit above you will give you an assignment. But if a partner gives you an assignment, your job is to just ask questions and try to get a general sense, specifically as they will give you, of the work that's required, and then to figure it out by asking other people, other associates, and in the firm what to do and how to do it. So you have to feel yourself around a lot, but typically there's lots of online resources and stuff that you can study to learn kind of the procedures of doing things. And typically law firms will also have an online directory of all the motions that they've done, all the discovery that they've done. So there's very easy models to follow with all of this that are pretty easy to understand. One interesting thing is that a lot of attorneys now are using like ChatGPT to do research, to ask questions. And I'm not saying this should be your only source of information, but it can definitely help you in terms of understanding what to do. Any attorney that joins a new law firm as a first-year attorney, right out of passing the bar, is not expected to know what to do. So you learn on the job, and you can learn quickly or slowly. But typically, if it's a defense firm and you're just starting out, they will actually write off a lot of your time, because a lot of your time is going to be spent looking for how to do things and stuff. And so, law firms do not want to bill their clients for that sort of thing. So your ability to do that early in your career, and to just the time you spend on that, typically law firms write off. And it's for that reason that most law firms, you're not really going to be considered profitable there until you've been working for at least a year. So they will write off a lot of your time as the first year, and then when you get into your second year, you know what you're doing. So those are the resources that I would recommend. But if you are just starting out in a law firm, it's not really something that you should worry too much about, because everybody doesn't know what they're doing when they start. You don't know what you're doing in a law firm, after taking the bar exam or going to law school. No one does. You're only taught about what to do in a law firm after you've been there for some time, and you have to learn on the job. And it's completely different than law school or whatever you need to pass the bar. It's learning different skills. How many years of experience you need to list? Some people say to cap the number of years if you have a long resume. Yeah, so you can do that. So if you have 20 years of experience, what a lot of attorneys do, but they might list their last 2 jobs, and then if that was 5 or 6 years or 10 years of experience, then they will have a section where they just basically will list dates and say, I was an associate in these firms between 2005 and 2015, and they list it that way. But you don't need to. Some people will cap the number of years, especially when they're older, and then they will often put take off the graduation date and so forth like that. But you don't really need to cap the number of years. Most people will list all of their jobs. They just won't have long descriptions for them. They will just say what their title was, and they won't go into a lot of detail, because you typically do want to make your resume only 1 page. And if you make it much longer than that, then that will often create issues. Okay, let's see here. This is the long question, but I will do my best to answer. I'm an attorney focused on environmental law and energy law, including utilities, with experience in private law firms, as a solo, as an in-house government attorney, government lawyer at the energy level. I'm curious about your thoughts on the market demand for the following types of practice area due to the changes from the Biden administration policies to Trump administration policies. I'm not asking about the desirability of change, just what practice areas might suffer or get more robust. Okay, so under the Trump administration, you're going to have a lot more oil and gas work. So that's going to be something that's going to increase. So fossil fuel type of work is going to increase because they're obviously going to want to do more oil and fracking and that sort of thing. So that is going to probably increase. I think if they're finding more areas to drill and things like that, that will have a lot more to do with land use compliance. There's different states have different environmental laws in addition to working under federal environmental related work. So that will also impact the amount of work that's available. So it's going to depend on you know, I would think states, but also different different types of whatever where there's increased demand. I don't know. I mean, environmental law is a practice area where I have not traditionally made as many placements as I make in other practice areas. So if you are in that practice area, I would just say I don't know everything there is to know about it. I would think you would probably have a better sense than I do. But I do know that anything to do with land use, especially in California, is very, very busy. So there's always a demand for land use attorneys, but far less for attorneys doing other related practice for doing other types of environmental work. So that would be my answer. I apologize if it's not the greatest answer. I just this is not a matter that I'm just familiar with. Okay, just 1 second, and I just have to grab something. Okay. Yeah. I apologize. Just had to grab some. Okay, the next question. Okay, question is, okay, this week I was written up for failure to calendar a deadline to file. Oops, sorry about that. Oh, that's not good. Give me 1 second. Camera here. Okay. Question is, this week I was written up for failure to calendar a deadline to file a motion to compel. The manual says the paralegal calendars a deadline, but the attorney supervises the paralegal. I took ownership of my mistake. This is my 4th motion here. I took the job offer because they trained and take recent graduates. When I sat with my boss to discuss my write-up, the boss said, I oversold myself in the interview. I'm not sure if I should stay or leave. Is this write-up a red flag? This particular type of mistake is very common for junior attorneys. I wouldn't really worry too much about it. I don't know how senior you are in most firms that are beyond a certain size. There are people that will do that for you, which would be like a paralegal. In mid to large firms, there are actually things that are circulated each day, like telling you when things are due. So this is, I'm assuming, be a smaller size firm. So you just need to start calendaring this sort of stuff. I mean, I will tell you that when I was in large law firms, I never learned this. I was just told when to do it. And so this is something that I never learned how to do, but something that you should definitely learn how to do yourself. And that's, that I guess is important. I don't know that saying you oversold yourself is really the end of the world. I don't think you would get fired for something like this. I think that the cost of placing you would be far more than the cost of making things work with you. So I would think that just don't make this mistake in the future and just realize that it's something you have to be able to do yourself. And then if you do have a paralegal doing this for you, then meeting with them and asking them for to tell you these deadlines and stuff with a report, every day if necessary, to get that done. But I don't think you're going to lose your job because of this. And I don't think the firm would have any incentive to get rid of you just because you made this mistake, because the cost of replacing you, the downtime that they would have between someone, having to hire someone and the lost billable hours of your work wouldn't justify this. And this is the sort of mistake that typically tons of junior attorneys make. Even senior attorneys will make this mistake from time to time. So I wouldn't penalize yourself too much for having made this mistake, or worry about it too much. It's just it's not really that big of a deal. Law firms will often write you up for something like this. So if you are making these mistakes several times, and if you made it 2 or 3 times in the future, that it would be grounds to let you go. And then if you tried to sue them, they would have this backing them up. So they're just trying to protect themselves if you're someone that's likely to make these kind of errors in the future. So that would be my advice, is just not to really worry about it too much. A write-up is just their concern that you may make that same sort of error in the future. Now, I don't like the fact that they did a write-up. I think that there's probably something else going on besides this. So they may have other concerns with you. And so I would think very carefully about, anything that may have happened, anything with your hours, anything with maybe people not feeling like you did your best job with your assignments, anything to do with maybe not making people feel important that are working for you, because people typically won't do this sort of thing with people that they like. So that's my concern, is that maybe there's something that you did that they didn't like, and then saying you oversold yourself in your interview may mean that they got the impression that you would be better at your job than you led them on to believe in your interview. So I would have some concern about it. And I do think it's fixable, but I would look very carefully at what you could do to improve, because they want you to improve. They don't want to have to let you go. That's not in their best interest. So, what can you do to improve based on what's happened? I'll just tell you kind of my own story. So when I got fired from this clerkship, and when I when I was fired, I had to kind of look at what had I done wrong in my what I had done wrong in my clerkship, and then what I had done wrong on in my summer job, and what I had done wrong even on my resume and in all the interviews. I had to kind of look at all that. And what I did was kind of interesting. I spent 2 or 3 days just kind of journaling, everything that I thought I'd done wrong and everything that I thought I'd done right. So if I had interviews that I thought went well, what I had done differently in those interviews as opposed to ones where I didn't, what I had done wrong in jobs. And I wrote all that stuff down, and I started to notice a lot of patterns. And a lot of it started out that I was angry at the firm for this, I was angry for that. But then I realized that there was just a lot of things that I had done wrong, and I'd never really taken the time to look at myself the way other people would see me. So how were other people interpreting my actions? What was I doing wrong? And I remember I got this when I was a summer associate. I got this assignment from this one woman that was probably 2 or 3 years out of law school in the law firm, to do some research and find some cases for her. And so I did the research, and I found the cases for her, and I just kind of put them on her desk in the office, and without really doing anything else but finding some cases. And not only did I not find the cases, I just found the cases, but I didn't go through and underline things that were answering the question. I didn't read the cases carefully enough to see if they really matched what she was seeking. Did the logic of the case track what she needed to the result that she needed? I didn't do any of that. And not only that, I probably should have like written a memo telling her why I believe in these cases, what the holdings were, and everything like that. And I remember when I did this, she was very, very angry and just completely like, just was mad, and I'm sure didn't give me a good recommendation. And so, so I looked at that, and I remember for the longest time I was like, well, I did what she wanted. I found the cases, and it was only until I've been practicing for maybe 6 months working for the judge I was working for that I understood like what I'd done wrong. So you always need to understand those sorts of things. And then in my first job as a summer, I went in and I, even besides this work, I would come into the office at 9:30. I would work 8 hours a day, and then I would leave. I thought that this is what my job was, but other people were summer associates were staying late, billing all these hours, and I wasn't. And so when it came to the middle of the summer, I got a very bad review, and I didn't really, I thought I had done okay work. I didn't understand why the review was so bad, and it was basically because I hadn't been working as hard. That's what they wanted. They didn't come out and say it, but that's what they wanted. And then at the end of the summer, I got a much better review. I didn't get an offer. I think if I had done a better job earlier in the summer, I would have gotten an offer. I didn't get an offer because they said that they're not in a position to make offers to people who aren't starting for 3 years because I had this 2-year clerkship. But that was kind of their way of dealing with it. Whereas if I'd been, billed really hard all summer and done the best work, I would have got an offer, I'm sure. So you just have to really decide, to be able to do things in the way people want, and just think about if you've done anything wrong in your job or in your previous jobs, you should just write down every possible thing that you think you've done wrong or how your work is received, and then really reflect on it. And if you do that, you will become a much better attorney. Because when I did that, after getting fired from my clerkship, I kind of turned everything around in my whole career, and I was able to fix my resume and fix my interviewing and fix how I did in jobs because I'm not making the same mistakes I did. So sometimes your early career mistakes are very, very helpful and helping you not make the same mistakes in the future and doing much, much better in your job in the future than you have done up until that time. Okay. In all your jobs. So learning lessons early in your career is just very valuable. Even getting fired from a firm can be very valuable because you can learn lessons from that, because sometimes people just don't approach things right. And sometimes, like what you were just talking about, is about just being very, very thorough. So you need to be as thorough as possible, because what if the paralegal wasn't there? And it's just all these sorts of things that that are important early in the career. Second. Some firms, let's see, ask for references even before you're being interviewed, and you may never never hear back or get an acknowledgement from the firms after applying. Some people say they just want to get the references details. Should you not give the references until later? But some applications may not allow you or skip, or you would disqualify because you're incorrectly outdated. So if you're applying to firms online, those law firms are not going to check your references. They're just asking for that information right away, because if you do get to the offer stage, they may want to check your references. So that's not something that the law firms, when you're applying online or they're asking for that information in their initial application, that's not something they're going to check. They just want to have all that information in their applicant tracking system. So when they need it later, they can get it. So that's all there is for references. Just a few rules for references. When you do put down references, you should, if possible, ask people if they will serve as your reference. Some law firms, hardly any, will ask for references from your current employer, but most won't. And so putting down references on your on your application or applicant tracking system is not something that would ever be checked unless you got to the offer stage. And typically they will tell you when they're going to check your references, but some law firms won't. Sorry, I got disconnected. I didn't hear the answer to my question of being written up. Just more background. I've been a lawyer for 2 years. My boss is upset. He's written off some of my time. It takes me longer to do things than it would take him. Okay, so so that's fine. Sorry, I did answer the question, but the in the I answered it in quite a bit of detail. But for this particular question, being the boss is upset, he's written off some of the time because it takes longer to do things than it would him. Well, that makes sense. I mean, it should take you longer because you're not a partner and you haven't been doing this for your whole career. So I don't like that. Typically, if they're upset, they're written off your time. What that typically means also is that they may be working for smaller clients and don't have a large budget, and so you're expected to be very efficient with your time. If that's the issue, it may not be related to doing. I mean, I don't know what the issue is, but if it's taking you a little bit longer to do things, I don't know what kind of firm it is, but at certain firms where the clients aren't paying a lot of money, you're expected to kind of rush through things and may not be able to doing the work with as much thoroughness and depth as possible. So maybe you're taking a little bit more time to do to simple assignments. I don't know, but your objective would be to take that advice and try to get get the work done in the amount of time that he thinks it should be done. So, a question maybe to ask the next assignment would be, how long, do you think I should spend on this? And if he gives you an answer, then try to get the work done in that period of time. And if it takes you a little bit extra time, maybe not write down all your hours. But my advice would be to try to get from him some sort of, estimate in terms of how much time he thinks or she thinks, or you said him, how long it's taken, how long he thinks this should take him. So you just need to try to get a sense of what he wants. Typically, what he's saying is that his clients will only pay to have a certain amount of work done. So he's probably under some strains with his clients to keep bills down. So you just need to see if you can do the best job you can in order to give him what he wants. And that would just be basically asking how much time does he expect it to take, and doing that in like a nice way, not like a way that is put in his face because he said that to you. So that's how I would think about it. You may have been trained in a different way at whatever firm you're coming from in terms of the allowable time. And some law firms, especially smaller law firms that are working for smaller clients, don't want you to spend as much time because their clients won't pay as much money. Your question actually reminds me that it's very common, for example, in insurance defense firms that are working for insurance companies and things that are defending against, I don't know what it might be, like auto accidents and different personal injury cases and whatever it is. The insurance defense firms typically need to spend as little time as possible on things. They need to basically just keep kind of pushing the ball forward until there's a settlement. So attorneys at those firms are often expected not to spend a lot of time on matters. And because of that, that's just kind of the dynamic that goes on in a lot of those firms. So they do work as quickly as possible without, I've even seen cases where where they just put like one half of a paragraph on a page and then go to the next page, and they're not doing the best work, but that's what their clients are paying for. So it's important to understand kind of what's going on, with whatever employer you're working for, because if you were coming from like a large law firm going to work at a small law firm, they're not going to like you spending a lot of time on matters because their clients like to pay for it. Okay, given that the Trump administration has announced increases in tariffs on almost all countries, with a more aggressive and America First posture on international trade, do you anticipate that trade law firms will be looking to recruit more experienced trade counsels with in-house or solo backgrounds? Um, Again, international trade is a practice area that we certainly have candidates doing. It's not right now, hasn't traditionally been one of the most active practice areas for hiring. I would think that with if there are increases in tariffs and things like that, I would think that overseas clients would want to have the ability to figure out the best ways of getting uh, products and things into the U.S. without tariffs. And so I would think that there would be an increased demand for international trade attorneys. I mean, again, not knowing the specific dynamics about how that works, that would be my opinion in terms of what would happen. And so, yes, I think they would be looking to recruit more people, even from in-house or solo practice backgrounds. If you look at law firms in Washington, D.C., there are a lot of very small international trade firms. Some cases, through attorneys. There's a lot with just one attorney. So I think anybody with experience in that, if it becomes a very active practice area, is likely to be able to get hired. This is what happens anytime there's like an increased regulatory or other demand for a practice area. A couple of years ago, that was happening with healthcare because there was a lot of I don't know exactly what was going on, but there was a lot of healthcare regulation and stuff. And so all of a sudden, there were all these large law firms in all of these areas that typically didn't have like very vibrant, healthcare related work going on, like Washington, and not Washington, like Chicago and stuff. That suddenly were looking everywhere they could find healthcare attorneys with experience in different things like billing, coding, and things related to that. And they were hiring people, and from hospital, from healthcare in-house healthcare attorneys, and people from small law firms were getting hired in major law firms. So anytime there's like a dramatic shift in any type of policy, and there's not enough attorneys out there that they can fill the ranks with inside of existing law firms in the market, then they will go to in-house and solo practitioners, and even in smaller law firms to fill those needs. And they will often, look the other way, but not having a lot of law firm experience, and will hire people from non-traditional backgrounds. So it doesn't happen a lot, but this is one area where it could dramatically increase. And this happens also in other practice areas like immigration, and policies change. So if there's a very hard stance of immigration, then like there's probably going to be in the Trump administration, then you're probably going to see corresponding lack of one way or another, lack or growth in immigration dependent, based on that. Okay, let's see. So this question, generally, what amount of portable business would a medium or large law firm expect to recruit senior counsel laterally? Sorry, the question is generally what amount of portable business would a medium or large law firm expect to recruit a counsel or senior counsel laterally? So if a law firm's trying to recruit someone as a counsel, so a counsel is different than a partner. So just to kind of understand the differences, you have associates, obviously, that are just kind of paid a salary called associates, and then you have counsel. Counsel in a law firm is typically someone that is senior, meaning they might have 10 or more years of experience, and is an expert in a certain practice area, does very, very good work, but for whatever reason isn't partnership material, meaning they're not willing to bill the hours, or they're not necessarily someone that's going to bring in business. So counsel level attorneys and senior counsel, if there's demand in the market, can be hired laterally without having any business. Typically, there's always going to be counsel in large law firms, medium-sized law firms. Most typically, counsel are more senior attorneys that may have a good reputation in the market and do good work, but are no longer hungry to go out there and generate business or bill the hours, and so they make them counsel. And you'll often see, when you look at the websites of law firms, you'll see a lot of people that are counsel that are very senior and maybe in their 70s or whatever, and just not willing to do the work at that point in their career anymore. So counsel doesn't necessarily mean business. Now, in terms of partners that they're expecting for a counsel or a large law firm, it depends on the demand in the practice area. So if there's a huge demand in a practice area and the law firm has a lot of senior level work that their partners can't do in that practice area, then the amount of business needed is going to be less than if they don't have a lot of their own work. So if they do have a lot of their own work, which is often the case, they will expect you to have some amount of business, typically enough to more than cover your salary. Typically, they're interested in probably 1.5 times your salary if they have the work. So what does that mean? So if they're going to pay you $300,000 a year, then they're going to want you to have probably $450,000 to $500,000 in work, which might result in you billing 1,000 or 1,200 hours or something, and then they will supplement the rest if they have the work. If they don't have the work, then typically you're going to need, depending on what the salary you want is, you're going to need about, and it differs on different firms, but the math typically works out to you will be paid anywhere from 20 to 40%, with 30% being the average of the amount of business that you have that you are bringing. So if you're bringing, it depends on the firm, but that's typically what they're looking for in partners. So $1 million book of business would result in $350,000 to $300,000 to $400,000 of compensation. And if it was and that wouldn't be a lot of business in a large law firm because their rates are very high. So you would be expected to have at least a few $1 million in business for a large law firm, but typically more than a couple million. I mean, the more you have, the better. They like to see 5 to 10 million, but it's not. If they have the work to give you, or they think that you can increase that based on their platform, then it will be less. Mid-sized firms, depends on what area of the country they're in. So in a mid-sized firm in somewhere that's not on a coast, it's going to be a lot less business than it would be in a smaller law, in a mid-sized law firm in a major market. But typically, the smaller the law firm, the less business you'll need. But you have to keep in mind that it's all dependent on your billing rates. So if your billing rates are lower and the billing rates of the firm are lower, then it's going to be less business. But mid-sized firms will compensate people in different matters, in different ways. So a lot of times, a mid-sized firm to a smaller law firm, you'll be compensated just based on what you bring in, nothing else. I mean, there won't be much of a salary or draw that you'll take against the money that you bring in. I mean, they might give you some draw of a couple $100,000 a year, but anything, and that's just based on what they think you're guaranteed to bring in, which is typically about 1.5 times your salary. So that's kind of how the math works out. But just to kind of write it down, most law firms, the compensation, set compensation based on, 1/3. So 1/3 is 1/3 is going to be your compensation. The other 1/3 will be the overhead, is secretaries and so forth. cetera. And then the other one law firm will be profits to other partners. So that's typically how it works. But larger law firms typically, if you're trying to be a partner there, or even mid-sized law firms, if they don't have enough work, will require you to have business to support your salary. Okay, this is the last question. So if anyone doesn't have any questions after this, I think this is the last one we'll be doing. So if you have other questions, you can ask them now. Otherwise, this will be the last one. Okay, can you explain how employment gaps, if you are let go and the boss, if you're let go and the boss said it is for performance reasons, but there's no indication before, so it may not be the real reason. You said before that this is a reason or something negative about you. How much details to include? No, so law firms will not just let you go for performance. Will often let you go for performance reasons if they want to protect their reputation and they don't have enough work. So law firms don't want people going out on the market and saying my law firm didn't have enough work, because that makes them look bad to other law firms or potential clients. So they don't want people saying that. So often law firms will let you go if they don't have enough work, but will blame it on performance reasons. And that's very, very common. It happens all the time. And so that's something that you want to be aware of, is that oftentimes what may be couched as performance reasons are not really performance reasons, because a law firm doesn't have enough work. That's one reason that they'll let you go. But maybe you don't want to say. So you said before, this is not not to say this is a reason or something negative about you. How much details to include? So often when a law firm interviews you and they see employment gaps, they've already accepted that. So they often will not ask a lot of questions about that. If a law firm brings you in to interview you and they do see those employment gaps, it's often because you are the best applicant that they have. And so they don't want to go into a lot of detail with you about it. They won't ask a ton of questions. If they do ask questions and you believe there wasn't enough work, you can say that. And oftentimes that's a good answer. If you have any reason to believe that, that's a good answer. Typically that's the best answer you can give, even though law firms don't want you saying that. If it was for something else, you can often say it was political in nature. Now, law firms let people go for political reasons all the time. I was talking to a partner a couple weeks ago, and he'd been at a firm for 20 years. This kind of political divide came up in the firm he was working for, and all of a sudden, he was on the wrong side of this political issue, and ended up losing his job, even though he'd been there for 20 years. He was just on the wrong side of the politics, and this can happen to firms at all times. So, but typically, law firms aren't going to ask a lot of questions if there's a gap and they've already decided to interview you. Oftentimes, people will say it was for family reasons, there was a health problem in their family, or and things like that. I don't know how often that's true or not, but people say that a lot, and that seems to be a decent reason. Saying there's not enough work is a decent reason, but trying not to make it about your performance or make it about anything else. I mean, sometimes you can say, that happens a lot of times. So it's maybe around the time you left, a partner in your practice area left, and you did a lot of work for them. But typically, law firms do not want to get too much into it, because if they do interview you, they want to hire you, so they don't want to ask a lot of questions. You're typically the best applicant if they're interviewing you with an employment gap, and they've already accepted that. And frankly, most attorneys, by the way, if you've been fired from a job, almost all attorneys will get fired at some point in their career, whether it's in a law firm, if they go in-house or try to have a career in-house, you're almost certain to get fired, because not because of necessarily anything to do with your work, but because the company slows down, needs to cut cost, or a new general counsel comes into place and wants to bring their legal team in, doesn't like you. I mean, there's just all sorts of reasons. So most attorneys will lose their job at least once, and often several times in their career through no fault of their own. If you lose your job early in your career, You should not feel badly about yourself because it happens to a lot of people. It's just like a really good learning experience, and you will get jobs. It may not be necessarily at the quality of firm you got let go from, but often it will be. And there's all sorts of ways to get around that. You can apply to smaller firms in your market, or you can just apply to firms in different parts of the country where there may be more of a demand for you than there is in the market you're in. So I wouldn't never worry about getting fired too much. I mean, I certainly got fired from a job and was able to get into great firms after that. And you shouldn't allow that to really define your future too much. It's not anything that I would worry too much about, other than just learning a lesson from it. And it can often be the most valuable lesson you have in your career. All right. Well, thank you everyone for show. Oh, here's another question. Let's see here. Okay. Thanks for asking that. Let me just see here. To this question. Okay. If you have $1 million in portable business, what possible incentive is you for enjoying a firm that will split half with them, with you retaining only 1/3 of the revenue? Do you receive significant revenue from matters referred to you by other partners to make up to the 2/3 share of your business that you surrender to a law firm? Okay, this is a good question. Very good question. So there are law firms out there, virtual law firms, that will pay you up to 85% or possibly a little bit more. So you can find these law firms just by researching virtual law firms out there, and there are plenty of law firms, virtual law firms, will do this. So if you have a book of business and your book of business isn't dependent on the firm you're with, then you can take all of your business and go to a virtual law firm and do that. The problem with a virtual law firm is you will not get associates. So if you want to hire associates, you'll have to do so with your own money. If you need a secretary and things like that, you'll have to do that with your own money. If you want office space, you'll have to do that with your own money. And you will have to manage your associate, you will have to manage or associates, and you will have to manage your billing and collections, and you will have to manage your all that sort of stuff. So why do attorneys go when they receive only 1/3 of the revenue? Attorneys in the largest law firms may receive less. I mean, they may receive, if you have $30 million in business, you may get a guarantee of $6 million a year. So why would people possibly want to go to a place where they're receiving such a low percentage of their business compared to how much they're bringing in? The reason they do so is because the better brand of law firm you're with. So if you're with a well-known Am Law 100 law firm, clients like that. So the biggest clients have general counsels that also work in big firms, and they're very familiar with the pecking order of what law firms are considered the best and what law firms are likely to impress opposing counsel or anybody trying to sue them. And so those law firms will, people that partners in those law firms will want to go to the best law firm they can, because that will attract the best clients, and that will make the clients feel good about the firm they're working for. There's also benefits to working in a larger firm where you may be receiving less of your collections, and those benefits are like the quality of associates they're providing. So, attracting very good associates requires paying high salaries, or requires going out to law schools and interviewing them, or requires running summer associate programs. They also have to attract the best secretaries and provide the best support. So they need to have very strong human resources departments that are able to bring in the best people and make them happy. They also have to pay for the most expensive office space and keep that up and updated. They have to have the best IT teams. They have to spend a lot of money on law libraries and resources. So the larger firm you go to, the more of that's going to be done. Your billing is going to be done. Your collections are going to be done. All this stuff is going to be done for you. And that gives you time to concentrate on generating business and doing good work, and then having good people beneath you. They're going to do the work. The associates are going to be managed. You don't have to manage the associates. You don't have to hire associates. You don't have to keep the associates happy. All that work is done for you in a large law firm. And the smaller the law firm you go to, the less of those kind of services and support you're going to get, and the less brand you're going to get. So the percentage as you move up the food chain in terms of the type of law firm and quality of law firm you're working for, the quality of those resources is typically going to go down. So, and if that's okay for you, you can still make a lot of money from your clients, and your clients are okay with that, then that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's not a big deal. One of the ways that type of firm where you would probably want to get the highest percentage possible might be are usually consumer facing law firms. So meaning you're doing work in immigration, or you're doing work in personal injury, or you're doing work in what is it, immigration, family law, or all sorts of practice areas where you're working for consumers. Consumers do not care about the brand of the law firm particularly. They just care if the work's being done and it doesn't cost them a lot of money. So you would want to get the highest percentage of your work from if you're doing consumer facing work, as opposed to working for a law firm. And if you feel comfortable hiring your own paralegals and so forth, you could start your own practice or work for a law firm that's going to pay you a lot. But typically, as you move up the food chain, you're going to get better resources, you're going to get a better brand, and in exchange for that, you're going to be able to ultimately probably make more money, even though you're getting less of a percentage of your business, and clients are going to like having that brand. Okay, well, thank you everybody for being on this webinar, and this was a great webinar. I commend everyone for being on this the day before Thanksgiving, and thank you again, and I hope everyone has a nice Thanksgiving and enjoy the webinar. Thanks again. Bye-bye.